Chapter 192. Inside the room, the sixth-floor master glanced at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man smiled bitterly. It's the Great Cloud Empire's Black Flame Cavalrymen. There are more than 50 of them. Apart from that, there are some obscure auras in the dark. They should be assassins from the dark world. 50 Black Flame Cavalrymen. The sixth-floor master's expression turned grave. In Jianghu, the Black Flame Cavalrymen were invincible below the Dharma realm. Not to mention Jianghu, even in the divine central continent, the Black Flame Cavalrymen weren't weak. At the very least, they weren't weaker than the Tao soldiers of drunken Immortal Inn and Kuraki College. 50. Now he knew why Yi Xian had retreated. Even with Yi Xian's strength, it would be difficult for him to fight against 50 of them. These Black Flame Cavalrymen weren't like ordinary cavalrymen. They were all elites. Whether it was their personal strength or the equipment they wore, they were all top-notch. Their battle prowess wasn't something ordinary cavalrymen could compare to. If Yi Xian fought with these cavalrymen, he would definitely be delayed or even killed. What should we do now? The middle-aged man asked suddenly. The sixth-floor master looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian shrugged. Run. The middle-aged man and the sixth-floor master's expression turned strange. Yi Xian was puzzled. Can't we run? The sixth-floor master smiled bitterly. Of course we can. But, shouldn't you be fighting? In his impression, Yi Xian was a very tough person. Yi Xian shook his head. They are fighting 50 against 1. Am I stupid? Actually, he wasn't afraid of the Black Flame Cavalrymen. The main problem was those Dharma realm old monsters from Kuraki College. If they were mixed in with the Black Flame Cavalrymen, or rather, they were definitely mixed in. She wasn't afraid of them. Most importantly, why should he fight to the death with these people? If he could win, he would fight. If he couldn't, he should run. The sixth-floor master stood up. Little friend, my drunken Immortal Inn has 6 tunnels that lead to various places outside the city. Follow me. Wait. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stood up. Give me a moment. With that, he picked up the Lingxiu sword and walked towards the door. The middle-aged man and the sixth-floor master looked at each other in confusion. Outside the drunken Immortal Inn, Yi Xian walked to the entrance with his sword in hand. Not far from him stood rows of Black Flame Cavalrymen, a total of 50 of them. These Black Flame Cavalrymen were organized as one, and their bodies emitted a sharp killing intent. In all fairness, the Black Flame Cavalry was indeed very strong. If they were to fight on the battlefield, he might not be able to defeat the 50 people in front of him. These people were much, much stronger than some of the geniuses on the Azure Province martial rankings. After Yi Xian came out, the 50 cavalrymen's gazes instantly fell on him. Yi Xian suddenly pointed his spirit-elegant sword at the 50 Black Flame Cavalrymen. I'll fight you to the death at daybreak. With that, he turned around and walked into the drunken Immortal Inn. Outside the building, in the darkness somewhere beside Mu Qingxian, the mistress of the darkness said in a deep voice, Daybreak? Mu Qingxian said indifferently, in the dark world assassins have the advantage, and he is at a disadvantage. He naturally isn't willing to fight with us in the dark. If he wants daybreak, then we'll wait for daybreak. It suits me perfectly. Delay. Their objective was actually to delay. Because they were very clear that even if there were 50 Black Flame Cavalrymen, it would be hard to kill Yi Xian. One had to know that Yi Xian still had the existence of 12 golden men. Hence, their thinking was very simple. Delay Yi Xian and wait for reinforcements to arrive. The mistress of the darkness thought about it and nodded. That's true. Just like this, the group of people waited and waited. Roughly 4 hours later, the sky finally brightened. Everyone looked towards the entrance of the drunken Immortal Inn. The 50 cavalrymen were waiting in formation, and all of them had vigilant expressions. Because they knew who they were going to deal with. Sword Master. The youngest sword master in the Azure Province. Furthermore, Yi Xian still had 12 golden men that were comparable to peak divine fusion realm experts. They didn't dare to be careless. The 50 black flame cavalrymen stared fixedly at the entrance of the drunken Immortal Inn. As long as that man appeared, they would immediately launch an attack. 1 breath passed. 10 breaths passed. Half an hour passed. A quarter of an hour passed. At the entrance of the drunken Immortal Inn, that man still did not come out. In the corner, Mu Qingxian frowned deeply. Another quarter of an hour passed, and still no one came out. And Mu Qingxuan's expression was already gloomy. A quarter of an hour later, an old man appeared at the entrance of the drunken Immortal Inn. 6th floor master. 6th floor master stretched his waist, then looked at Mu Qingxian in the corner and smiled. Dean Mu, good morning. Mu Qingxian suddenly appeared in front of 6th floor master. He stared fixedly at 6th floor master. Where is he? Person. 6th floor master had a blank expression. Who? Mu Qingxian was practically roaring. Yi Xian. Yi Xian? 6th floor master was astonished. You don't know? He has already left. Boom. A powerful aura suddenly surged out from Mu Qingxuan's body. 6th floor master's figure trembled, and he directly retreated over 10 feet. The ground within 10 feet of Mu Qingxian had already turned into a deep pit. Mu Qingxian clenched his fists, and his expression was somewhat distorted. Gone. He never thought that Yi Xian would actually escape. Escape. What about the fight to the death at daybreak? Was this still a swordsman? A swordsman who was so afraid of death? A swordsman who went back on his words? Too shameless. Too untrustworthy. Mu Qingxian was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. In the distance, 6th floor master smiled. Dean Mu, don't be angry. State Scholar Yi has some words for you. He said that he is not feeling well today, so he decided to fight another day. He has already chosen the location. It is your Kuraki Academy. Quickly go back and wait for him. Ha. With that, he turned and left. In the same place, although Mu Qingxuan's fists were still clenched, he had already calmed down. At this moment, Mistress of the Dark World appeared beside Mu Qingxian. 4 hours. I'm afraid he has already reached Sui Yinsheng. Sui Yinsheng. Mu Qingxuan's eyes narrowed. This Sui Yinsheng was very close to the Great Cloud Imperial capital. As long as he passed through Sui Yinsheng and 2 more small cities, he could reach the Great Cloud Imperial capital in a day's journey. Once Yi Xian entered the Great Cloud Imperial capital and went to Kuraki Academy, Mu Qingxian did not dare to think about it. With Yi Xian's personality, once he entered the Great Cloud Imperial capital, he would absolutely do anything. Mu Qingxian suddenly looked up. Chase after him. We must stop him and buy time for the reinforcements of the divine central continent. Mistress of the Dark World nodded, turned and left. Mu Qingxian looked up at the drunken Immortal Inn not far away and said fiercely, Drunken Immortal Inn, you will regret helping him like this. With that, he turned and left. In the pavilion, 6th floor master chuckled. Regret? The one who regrets the most should be your Kuraki Academy. After a dozen breaths, 50 black flame cavalrymen left the city, leaving a trail of dust behind them. Chase after Yi Xian. On a plain, Yi Xian was riding the black flame horse, galloping madly all the way. Behind him was a long trail of black flames. On the horseback, Yi Xian pondered. With his current speed, if nothing unexpected happened, he could reach the Great Cloud Imperial capital in 6 or 7 days at most. Once he reached the Great Cloud Imperial capital, the battlefield would be at Kuraki Academy. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly looked up. In front of him, 3 black arrows were shooting toward him at lightning speed. When he raised his head, they were already in front of him. Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Chi chi. 2 wisps of sword light shot out from Yi Xian's eyes. Boom. In front of Yi Xian, the arrows directly shattered. At this moment, a spear pierced through the air from a distance. The spear tore through the air, producing a sharp and ear-piercing sound. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the exquisite spirit sword flew out with a whoosh. In the blink of an eye, the exquisite spirit sword stabbed the tip of the spear. It was a tit for tat. Bang! The spear trembled violently and flew back. A few dozen feet away, a hand held the spear tightly. It was a woman with a head full of dirty whips. The woman's face was painted with colorful stripes, and she wore a big nose ring. Her clothes were also extremely revealing. She only wore a beast-skin tube top and a beast-skin short skirt. On the woman's left and right were 5 men. 3 of them carried big bows on their backs, while the other 2 held spears in their hands. All 5 of them had fierce expressions. In front of the 5 men, the woman sized up Yi Xian, then turned to look at the men beside her. She smiled and said, "Qingzhou's #1 genius? He's not that great." As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian, who was not far away. "My beast wolf mercenary group wants your head." At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared from the black flame horse. At the same time, a wisp of sword light quietly appeared in front of the woman. The woman's pupils suddenly shrank. At this moment, her eyes were filled with fear. She sensed lethal danger from this attack. Because when it arrived in front of her, her first thought was that she wouldn't be able to resist it. This attack would kill her. However, she clearly didn't want to just wait for death to come. She stomped her left foot on the ground, and a powerful aura instantly swept through her. At the same time, she stabbed the spear forward. This attack caused her entire face to warp. It was a stab with her full strength. Because she knew that she would definitely die if she couldn't resist this attack from Yi Xian. The spear stabbed forward while the sword arrived. Crack! The clear and melodious sound of metal breaking resounded, and then a ray of light pierced through the center of her forehead. The woman's figure stiffened on the spot, and Yi Xian was standing in front of her. She gazed at Yi Xian. "All right." Quickly. As soon as she finished speaking, the center of her forehead suddenly split open, and then blood sprayed out from it while she fell to the ground. On the other hand, the 5 men by the woman's side were completely stunned. An instant kill? She was killed just like that? Their faces were filled with disbelief. Meanwhile, 7 swords suddenly flew out from the sword box on Yi Xian's back. Hiss! 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 The other 5 were killed before they could even react. Yi Xian cleaned up the battlefield, and his gains weren't small. There were around 400 million gold coins, and there were actually over 1 million supreme-grade spirit stones. 1 million. Yi Xian was slightly excited. What he lacked the most right now were supreme-grade spirit stones. Because only with supreme-grade spirit stones could he utilize the 12 golden colossi. What timely help! Yi Xian bowed slightly to the corpses and said sincerely, "Good people, all good people." Hee hee. At this moment, a low chuckle sounded out from behind Yi Xian. It was very close, about a dozen steps away. Yi Xian held the spirit elegance sword in his right hand, and his expression was solemn because he actually didn't notice that the person had arrived behind him. Who was it? P.S. It's been 2 chapters lately, but no one is scolding me. There are still many people voting, leaving messages, and comforting me. Thank you all for your support. Many people want me to stop updating. Actually, what I want to say is, to my dad, I'm his son, and I have the responsibility to be filial. To the readers, I'm an author, and I have the same responsibility. The responsibility to write well, and the responsibility to update. Moreover, I'm the only one in the family with an income. I don't write, so I don't have any income. Life isn't easy, but I still have to live on with a smile, and work hard with everyone. Genius. 1 second to remember this website address. Mobile version. Chapter 193. Yi Xian turned around. Not far in front of him stood a little girl. She was about 16 or 17 years old and wore a light green dress. She was smiling at him faintly. She walked slowly towards Yi Xian with a mischievous look on her face. Her eyes were lively and she looked very cute. In her right hand was a mace. It was not big and was about the size of her arm. When he saw the mace, Yi Xian's expression changed again. It was a true grade spirit weapon. A true grade spirit weapon. Who was this little girl? When the little girl was only 5 or 6 steps away from Yi Xian's expression changed suddenly. He tapped the tip of his foot lightly and his entire body floated back a distance of 30 meters, distancing himself from the little girl. The little girl was stunned for a moment before she grinned. Don't be afraid. It won't hurt. I guarantee that your head will explode with one hammer. There won't be any pain before you die. When she finished speaking, she appeared in front of Yi Xian again. However, Yi Xian retreated another 30 meters. The little girl frowned. Come here. Let me hammer you to death. Yi Xian asked, why do you want to hammer me to death? The little girl giggled. If I beat you to death, there will be a lot of money. When she finished speaking, she threw the mace at Yi Xian. In the distance, the moment the little girl attacked, Yi Xian took a step forward and stabbed with his sword. Bang! Yi Xian retreated more than 200 feet in an instant. In front of him was a ravine that was more than 200 feet long. It was created by his feet. Yi Xian looked down at his right hand. At this moment, his entire right arm was trembling violently. Not only that, but the spirit elegant sword in his hand was also trembling. There were even cracks at the tip of the sword. So powerful. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the little girl not far away. The little girl sized him up with a hint of surprise in her eyes. Aya, little swordsman, you're not bad. You didn't die after taking a hit from me, little goblin Tuoba. As she spoke, she gave Yi Xian a thumbs up. Not bad. You're 1/10 as good as I am. You're worthy of praise. Yi Xian's face darkened. Damn it, are you praising me or praising yourself? Meanwhile, the little demoness called Taba was about to attack once more when Yi Xian hurriedly said, wait. The little girl stopped. She blinked and swung the hammer in her hand. What are you doing? Yi Xian said seriously, I can't beat you. The little girl said matter-of-factly, you can't beat me in the first place. Is there a problem? Yi Xian was speechless. The little girl swung the hammer in her hand and was about to attack again when Yi Xian hurriedly said, I have a problem, a big problem. The little girl frowned. Why do you have so many problems? Isn't it just death? What's there to be afraid of? It's just a hammer strike. Yi Xian was speechless. You're not the one who's going to die. Seeing that the little girl was a little impatient, Yi Xian walked in front of her. He flicked his finger and a gold card appeared in front of the little girl. The little girl sized up the gold card. Soon, her eyes lit up. There were 500 million gold coins in the gold card. 500 million gold coins. The little girl grabbed it in her hand. Then, she looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Is this for me? Yi Xian nodded and said seriously, I was deeply attracted to you from the first time I saw you. The little girl blinked. Why? Yi Xian said seriously, outstanding. You're like a firefly in the night. Even the night can't block your light. A straightforward person doesn't beat around the bush. I, Yi Xian, want to be friends with you. I like to be friends with outstanding people. The little girl sized up Yi Xian with eyes full of admiration. It was a look of admiration. You have a good eye. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. I don't have eyes. At this moment, the little girl waved the gold card in her hand. 500 million gold coins. You're giving it to me just like that? Yi Xian said seriously, it's too vulgar to talk about money between friends. Since you've come from the Central Divine Prefecture, you must be in urgent need of money. Take this money for emergencies. If it's not enough, come find me. I'll gather it for you even if I have to sell my blood. The little girl was about to speak when a group of black flame cavalrymen rushed over from behind her. Yi Xian's face sank. He hadn't expected the black flame cavalrymen to arrive so quickly. The little girl turned to look at the black flame cavalrymen. Who are they? Yi Xian pulled the little girl behind him and said solemnly, they're the cavalrymen that Kuraki Academy invited. In any case, you go first. I'll bring up the rear. Don't worry about me. Really, I can hold on. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his sword and charged towards the cavalryman. Behind him, the little girl was slightly stunned. In the distance, Yi Xian charged towards the black flame cavalryman with his sword in hand. The aura of his sword grew stronger and stronger. Gradually, the ground beneath his feet cracked open with every step he took. Yi Xian and the black flame cavalryman drew closer and closer. When he was 3 m away from them, he suddenly leaped up and slashed down with his sword in both hands. A bright ray of sword light flashed down. Bang! The leader of the black flame cavalryman was sent flying over 100 meters away. When he crashed to the ground, he didn't stand up again. However, Yi Xian was also sent flying. Not only that, there was a bloody hole on his left shoulder. Yi Xian landed in front of the little girl. Looking at Yi Xian on the ground, the little girl pulled Yi Xian out of kindness. Are you alright? Yi Xian rubbed his chest and shook his head. I'm fine. As he spoke, he raised his sword and charged towards the black flame cavalryman again. He roared angrily, come at me if you can. Don't hurt that little girl. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the little girl looked at the gold card in her hand and sighed softly. Too outstanding. Dad, you must have saved the Azure Firmament world in your past life. Otherwise, how could you have given birth to such an outstanding daughter like me? Bang! At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly landed in front of the little girl. Yi Xian spat out a mouthful of blood and stood up. At this moment, the black flame cavalryman charged over and surrounded him and the little girl. Yi Xian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He was expressionless. The little girl sized up the black flame cavalryman curiously. At this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared in the sky above the black flame cavalryman. This person was Mu Qingxian. Mu Qingxian looked at Yi Xian. His eyes were filled with wariness and doubt. This was because he was clear about Yi Xian's strength. Even if he couldn't defeat these black flame cavalrymen, it was impossible for him to be suppressed like this. There's a trap. Now, he had figured out Yi Xian's character. This was definitely a despicable, shameless, and sinister person. There must be a trap. Soon, Mu Qingxuan's gaze landed on the little girl beside Yi Xian. The little girl looked at Mu Qingxian. So many of you against one person. Not kind at all. Mu Qingxian said coldly, it's none of your business. The little girl was stunned. Then, she looked at Yi Xian. He scolded me? Yi Xian nodded. I heard him. The little girl glared at Mu Qingxian. Damn you, saying this, she looked at Yi Xian. How should I scold him? Yi Xian said. Chest. The little girl blinked and looked at Mu Qingxian. Damn your chest, Mu Qingxian suddenly said, kill him. The black flame cavalrymen were about to attack. At this moment, the little girl suddenly raised her hammer and rushed out. Before anyone could react, a black flame cavalryman not far from Yi Xian was sent flying. In the air, the armor of the black flame cavalryman started to crack. The corner of Yi Xian's mouth could not help but twitch at the sight of that. God, that was a clear-grade equipment. It was shattered with one hammer? Mu Qingxian was also stunned. What the hell? The little girl did not stop. She turned her hand and smashed down with her hammer again, bang. Beside her, a black flame cavalryman's spear was instantly shattered. Then, the black flame cavalryman was sent flying, instant kill. The little girl still wanted to attack. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly pulled her arm. Don't use too much strength. Those armors and weapons are worth tens of millions of gold coins. The little girl's eyes lit up. Tens of millions? Yi Xian nodded. They are all treasures. The little girl turned to look at the Black Flame cavalrymen. At this moment, the Black Flame cavalrymen were already rushing over. The little girl suddenly smashed her hammer on the ground. Bang! The ground in an area of 300 m shook violently, and then the 10+ Black Flame cavalrymen in front of them were blasted flying by a powerful force. At the same time, this force forcefully stopped the remaining Black Flame cavalrymen. Besides the cavalrymen that were sent flying, the rest of the cavalrymen stopped. The ground within 100 zhang had completely cracked. Yi Xian wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. This little girl was too strong. She was definitely in the top 10 of the monstrous genius list. In the air, Mu Qingxian was stunned. He looked at the little girl. You, who exactly are you? The little girl looked up at Mu Qingxian. She gently moved her bangs away from her forehead. Little demon Tuoba, my father said that I was born to save the world. Mu Qingxian, Yi Xian walked to little demon Tuoba's side. He pulled little demon Tuoba's sleeve. Be careful. He is an expert at the peak of the 10,000 laws realm. Little demon Tuoba waved her small hand. My father can kill 100 people like him with one slap. Of course, I am not someone who relies on my father. As she spoke, she looked at Mu Qingxian. My uncle can also kill 100 people like you with one slap. If you want to make a move, I will call my uncle. Yi Xian was speechless. You don't rely on your father. Is there any difference between calling your uncle or your father? In the air, Mu Qingxuan's expression was extremely ugly. There was no doubt that this little girl came from the divine central continent. Because in Azure province, there was no one so terrifying. Moreover, from the little girl's words, it was clear that her background was not simple. Mu Qingxian pondered for a moment. His expression softened. Little girl, I have offended you before. Please forgive me. My Kuraki Academy has no intention of becoming enemies with your excellency. Yi Xian suddenly pulled little demon Tuoba's sleeve. Make him pay for the psychological damage. Little demon Tuoba blinked. Then, she looked at Mu Qingxian. Pay. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. How much? Yi Xian said seriously, you are so outstanding, but he actually scolded you just now. This cannot be tolerated. Absolutely cannot be tolerated. Make him pay 2 billion. Otherwise, call your uncle here. Call your father here too. Genius 1 second remember website. Mobile version. Chapter 194. Yi Xian. Mu Qingxian stared at Yi Xian. If looks could kill, Yi Xian would have died a long time ago. Yi Xian ignored Mu Qingxian and faced little demon Tuoba. Did your father scold you? Little demon Tuoba shook her head. Yi Xian asked again, did your uncle scold you? Little demon Tuoba shook her head again. Yi Xian suddenly pointed at Mu Qingxian and said angrily, then what right does he have to scold you? Hearing this, little demon Tuoba clenched her left hand. She looked up at Mu Qingxian and said angrily, what right do you have to scold me? Yi Xian quickly echoed and pointed at Mu Qingxian angrily, what right do you have to scold such an outstanding person? Hearing Yi Xian's words, little demon Tuoba became even angrier. Her chest heaved up and down, and the hammer in her hand trembled violently. Yi Xian wanted to say something, but little demon Tuoba suddenly cried. Yi Xian swallowed the words he was about to say. What was going on? Mu Qingxian was also stunned in the air. Little demon Tuoba wiped her tears and said with incomparable grievance, my uncle, my father, my brother, and my third uncle have never scolded me. What right does he have to scold me? Why? Yi Xian suddenly felt a sense of guilt. This little girl, she really felt wronged. At this moment, little demon Tuoba suddenly looked at Mu Qingxian and said angrily, 20 billion. Compensate me 20 billion, otherwise, I will ask my uncle to beat you to death. With that, she took out a sound transmission stone. Mu Qingxian clenched his fists tightly and his expression was gloomy. Threat. This was a blatant threat. 20 billion? Even if he sold Kuraki Academy, he wouldn't have that much. Even if he did, he wouldn't pay. Mu Qingxian glanced at Yi Xian, let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure trembled, and he disappeared. The surviving Black Flame cavalrymen wanted to leave as well. However, Yi Xian suddenly said, don't let them leave. Kill them. After saying that, he directly rushed out. Little demon Tuoba also rushed out with Yi Xian in hand. However, she wasn't chasing after the Black Flame cavalry, but Mu Qingxian. Yi Xian hurriedly pulled her back. That's the peak of the 10,000 Dharma realm. We can't beat it for now, but we can beat it first. As he spoke, he pointed at the group of Black Flame cavalrymen in the distance. Go easy on them, they're all money. Little demon Tuoba nodded instinctively. Then, he was pulled by Yi Xian and rushed over. It would be a bit difficult for Yi Xian to defeat 50 Black Flame cavalrymen alone, but with the little demon Empress Tuoba, it wouldn't be difficult at all. At this moment, Yi Xian didn't hold back any longer because these Black Flame cavalrymen weren't simple, and the slightest mistake could result in their defeat. About an hour later, Yi Xian and little demon Tuoba stopped. The two of them sat on the ground, and behind them was a ground full of corpses. They were all Black Flame cavalrymen. They chased them all the way, and after chasing them for nearly 50 kilometers, they finally killed more than 40 Black Flame cavalrymen. The two of them sat on the ground, and little demon Tuoba leaned against Yi Xian. She used her hammer to point at the nearby Black Flame cavalrymen, and asked curiously, how much are they worth? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then said, a lot. 40 sets of equipment. Most of them were clear rank equipment, and it could be said to be a huge profit. The only pity was the Black Flame horses. After the cavalrymen were killed, the Black Flame horses had already escaped, and he and little demon Tuoba couldn't stop them at all. After resting for a moment, Yi Xian put away the Black Flame cavalry's equipment, and then gave 20 sets to little demon Tuoba. These 20 sets are yours. You can go back to the Divine Central Continent to sell them, or you can follow me to the Imperial Capital to sell them. It's up to you. To the Imperial Capital. This chapter isn't finished. Please continue. Little demon Tuoba practically didn't even think about it. Yi Xian grinned, come, let's go to the Imperial Capital. As soon as he finished speaking, he called over his Black Flame horse, let's sit together. Little demon Tuoba didn't think too much about it, and she immediately leaped onto her Black Flame horse while Yi Xian followed behind her. It didn't take long for the two of them to vanish into the distance. After Yi Xian and little demon Tuoba left, Mu Qingxian appeared here once more, and his expression was surprisingly calm as he gazed at the corpses that covered the ground. A short moment later, he turned around and left. On a plain, Yi Xian led little demon Tuoba as they galloped madly on the Black Flame horse. On the back of the Black Flame horse, little demon Tuoba suddenly asked, Sword Cultivator, I forgot what your name is. What's your name? Yi Xian. You're the sword master? Yes. Why are you so weak? Yi Xian was speechless. Did I say something wrong? No. Actually, it's not that I'm weak, it's that you're too strong. In front of you, all geniuses and monstrous geniuses are trash. Swordsman, although you're a little weak, you're an honest person. I like that. Yi Xian was speechless. This time, Kuraki Academy and Dark World didn't send anyone to cause trouble, so their journey was very smooth, and they were getting closer and closer to the Imperial Capital. Great Cloud Empire Imperial Palace. In a certain garden, a woman in a black dress was holding the hand of a little boy in a dragon robe as they slowly walked on the gravel Shaodao. The little boy suddenly tilted his head and looked at the woman. Sister, Grand Tutor said that I'm old. I should be in power. The woman stopped and looked at the little boy. what do you think? The little boy was silent. The woman smiled, you still want it, right? The little boy lowered his head even more. The woman gently rubbed the little boy's head, it won't be long before the entire world will be yours. I won't fight with you for the throne. After saying that, she turned her head and looked not far away. There was a birdcage there, and inside the birdcage was a canary. Looking at the birdcage, the woman suddenly smiled, without this birdcage, that bird will obtain a wider sky. After saying that, she turned her head to the side, passed down the order, Grand Tutor's words and actions are improper, beheaded. Li family colluded with outsiders to rebel, beheaded, Gu family to rebel, beheaded, Qing family to rebel, beheaded, Tian family to rebel, beheaded. She listed more than 20 aristocratic families in one breath, and all of them were the aristocratic families of Great Cloud Empire. The little boy was completely dumbfounded. Yes. Someone answered in the dark and quietly retreated. The little boy looked at the woman with some astonishment, but the woman smiled, don't be surprised, they're all malignant tumors that should have been removed long ago. And there are still 2 of the biggest tumors, but they should be removed soon. After saying that, she let go of the little boy's hand and walked away. The little boy didn't follow her, he just lowered his head, and no one knew what he was thinking. The woman slowly walked into the distance and stopped in front of a pool. Mu Qingxian was right in front of her. Mu Qingxian slightly bowed to the woman, Miss Lian. The woman smiled, Dean Mu failed? Mu Qingshuan's expression was gloomy. After a moment, he slightly bowed, please help me, Miss Lian. Help. The woman shook her head and smiled, for your Kuraki Academy, Great Cloud Empire has lost 150 Black Flame cavalrymen. Apart from that, we also mobilized the aristocratic families in the city to help. To be honest, I've helped you a lot, Dean Mu. Mu Qingxian looked at the woman with a trace of complicated expression, Miss Lian, I'm not a fool. You seem to be helping Kuraki Academy, but in fact, you're helping Great Cloud Empire, right? Out of the 50 Black Flame cavalrymen, 40 were killed, but Great Cloud Empire didn't take any responsibility. This chapter is not over, please continue to the next page. Just this point alone made him understand a lot of things. Weaken. This woman was using Yi Xian to weaken their influence in Great Cloud Empire. Lian Wanli's smile gradually faded, Dean Mu, my Great Cloud Empire has lost 150 Black Flame cavalrymen for your Kuraki Academy. I'm really disappointed by your words. Mu Qingshuan's expression changed. After a moment, he squeezed out a smile, yes, I misspoke. I came here to ask for Miss Lian's help. As long as Miss Lian closes the city gate, dispatches the army to guard the surroundings, and activates the Grand Formation, Yi Xian won't be able to enter the city. Why? Lian Wanli suddenly walked to Mu Qingxian and looked straight at him. Yi Xian has become a sword master at such a young age. Such a talent is rare in Qingzhou. As people of Qingzhou, we should be proud of him. Even if we can't be friends, we shouldn't suppress him. Saying that, she shook her head and sighed, Dean Mu, let me give you a piece of advice. Do more good. Saying that, she turned and left. Mu Qingshuan's expression was as ugly as if he had eaten 10 kilograms of dung. Do more good? Have you ever done kindness for 10,000 li? Who doesn't know that you killed without batting an eye and slaughtered almost the entire Great Cloud Empire? Still doing good. Mu Qingxian almost vomited blood. He knew that Kuraki Academy, Dark World, and those aristocratic families had been cheated by this woman. What a huge scam. At this moment, Lian Wanli suddenly stopped. She turned around and smiled, Dean Mu, a friendly reminder. Yi Xian will be here soon. Saying that, she turned around and walked away while humming an unknown tune. Mu Qingxian coldly looked at Lian Wanli and didn't say anything else. He turned around and left. Because no matter what he said, he would only be humiliating himself. Kuraki Academy. Mu Qingxian stood in front of Haran Palace. He raised his head and looked at the sword above his head for an hour. Sword Immortal. Mu Qingxian laughed at himself. A sword immortal suppressed Kuraki Academy to the point of suffocation. At this moment, he suddenly turned around. Behind him were all Kuraki Academy's students, mentors, and elders. Everyone looked at Mu Qingxian. One of the students suddenly stood up. Dean Mu, if Yi Xian comes to my Kuraki Academy, I am willing to be the first to fight. I want the world to know that there are no cowards in my Kuraki Academy. We are willing to fight. Countless Kuraki Academy students roared in unison. Mu Qingxuan's eyes had a trace of gratification. My Kuraki Academy's students are ultimately unyielding. At this moment, the mistress of the dark world suddenly appeared beside Mu Qingxian. Yi Xian has arrived outside the city. He's here. The scene instantly quietened down. Outside the Great Cloud Imperial capital, Yi Xian and little demon Tuoba rode the black flame horse and slowly walked towards the city gate not far away. Little demon, how did you become so outstanding? Can you teach me? I can't. I was born like this. Sigh, I also want to be as outstanding as you. Unfortunately, I'm afraid I won't be able to do it in this lifetime. Actually, you aren't that bad. You can see that I, little demon Tuoba, am outstanding at first glance. You are also very, 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 very not simple. By the way, little demon, how about you call me big brother in the future? I will protect you. Whoever bullies you, I will help you beat them up. No, no. Call me big sister, I will protect you in the future. Whoever bullies you, I will help you beat them up. Okay, big sister. Little demon Tuoba. P.S. I have been suffering from insomnia recently. I can only sleep by listening to songs. Especially one of the songs, it is very good to listen to. It has been on repeat for a week. I sincerely recommend everyone to listen to it. The song name is very easy to remember. It is called, Blue Phoenix Handsome Guy, recommended by Conscience. You all deserve it. End of this chapter. Chapter 195. Big Sister. Tuoba was stunned. Why did it look like a trap? At this moment, Yi Xian said with a smile, I'll be honest with you. I came to the imperial capital to fight. With that, he jumped off the black flame horse and looked up at Tuoba. It's nice to meet you. However, this is a matter between me, Kuraki Academy, and Dark World. I shouldn't have let you get involved. Otherwise, it would be too much. With that, he turned and walked toward the city gate. A person naturally had to be righteous. A person without a bottom line was not a person. Swordsman. At this moment, Tuoba's voice came from behind Yi Xian. Yi Xian stopped and turned to face Tuoba. Tuoba grinned. Although you are slippery, you are a good person. I, Tuoba, am willing to be friends with you. Yi Xian grinned. Yi Xian, Qingzhou's Jianghu country, Blue Waves Academy's dean. Tuoba's lips curled up. Tuoba, Divine Central Continent's Tuoba clan's #1 genius, ranked 9th on the monster list. In the future, I will save the world. Yi Xian laughed. Little devil, if you want to save the world, then you have to work hard. Little monster Tuoba nodded earnestly. I will. At this moment, Yi Xian had reached the city gate. A middle-aged man suddenly appeared in front of the gate. Dharma Realm. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian without saying anything. However, his aura grew weaker and weaker. Soon, the middle-aged man was suppressed from Dharma Realm to Divine Combination Realm. The middle-aged man stopped near Yi Xian. Just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the middle-aged man. At the same time, 12 golden men appeared around the middle-aged man. The 12 golden men attacked in unison. At the same time, there was also a wisp of sword light. 3 breaths later, the 12 golden men retreated behind Yi Xian, and in front of Yi Xian, there was a head dripping with blood. It was the head of the middle-aged man. At this moment, his eyes were wide open, as though he had died with a grievance. At that moment, he didn't even have the chance to make a move. It should be said that he was killed before he could even react. With 12 golden men and Yi Xian, there was no doubt that they could kill a divine combination realm cultivator. Yi Xian looked up towards the city gate. "Kuraki Academy, I'm coming." With that, he quickly disappeared into the distance. Outside the city gates, little witch Tuoba glanced at the black flame horse beneath her, then hurriedly looked towards the nearby city gates. "Swordsman, your horse." Yi Xian had entered the city. The news quickly spread throughout the capital of Great Cloud Imperial Capital. Soon, countless people gathered at the foot of Kuraki Academy's mountain. Kuraki Academy. This was an ancient force with 1,000 years of history in Azure Province. It was also one of the 3 super overlords in Azure Province. Before this, Kuraki Academy could make Azure Province tremble with a stomp of its foot. Although this sentence was somewhat exaggerated, it was enough to prove Kuraki Academy's influence in Azure Province. But now, a youth less than 20 years old had come to Great Cloud Imperial Capital. This wasn't the main point. The main point was that this youth had threatened to destroy Kuraki Academy. Destroy Kuraki Academy. Even Great Cloud Empire wouldn't dare to say such words. At this moment, countless people had gathered at the foot of Kuraki Academy's mountain. All of them came from all over the imperial capital. Everyone wanted to see how this youth from country of Jianghu was going to destroy Kuraki Academy. Kuraki Academy was huge. At the foot of the mountain was a large square. At this moment, there were more than 100,000 people gathered at the square. There were all kinds of people. Wait. Everyone was waiting for Yi Xian to appear. On a certain street in the imperial capital, Yi Xian came to a noodle shop and sat down. "Boss, give me 2 bowls of noodles and 2 eggs." "Okay." The noodle shop owner answered, then skillfully grabbed a handful of noodles and threw them into the pot of soup. A moment later, 2 bowls of steaming hot noodles were placed in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian was stunned. 2 bowls? He was about to ask the noodle shop owner, but he seemed to have thought of something and swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Yi Xian was silent for a while. Then, he said softly, I miss you." After saying that, he pushed one of the bowls of noodles to the opposite side and started eating. His sister. She was the most important person in his life. He would always remember one thing. Back then, his sister was only 8 years old. She stood in front of a noodle stall for half an hour just to eat noodles. At that time, he didn't have a single cent helplessness. Heartache. From that moment on, he swore to himself that he would work hard to let his sister live a good life. The divine central continent. On a certain street, a little girl and a beautiful woman were strolling slowly. Passers-by on both sides of the street were looking at them. The little girl was too special. The little girl was about 13 or 14 years old. She wore a dress that seemed to be made of ice. Not only her dress, but even her hair was like ice strips. Her entire body exuded a cold aura that could be felt even from 30 meters away. Apart from that, every time the little girl's feet touched the ground, it would freeze. "Who is this little girl? She's so strange. You don't even know her?" The Northern Chill Holy Girl is said to be 12th on the monster list. That was 5 days ago. She's now 8th on the monster list. Heavens! How old is she? The youngest monster of the divine central continent. At the end of the street, the little girl suddenly stopped and turned to look at a noodle shop nearby. The little girl walked into the noodle shop and sat down on a chair. As soon as she sat down, the chair instantly froze over. Everyone around looked at the little girl and the beautiful woman. The little girl said indifferently, 2 bowls of noodles and 2 eggs. The owner was still in a daze. The beautiful woman by the little girl's side glanced coldly at the owner. The latter shivered and hurriedly said, yes, I'll be right there." The little girl withdrew a ring carved from ice and pressed it lightly with her thumb. The ring shook slightly, and it didn't take long for 5 swords to appear on the table. Everyone in the surroundings was dumbstruck when they saw these 5 swords. True rank swords. 5 true rank swords. The little girl gazed at the 5 true rank swords for a short while, and then she turned to look at the beautiful woman by her side. I must obtain that heaven rank sword. The beautiful woman hesitated for a moment and said, Holy maiden, you're not a swordsman, so why do you like to collect swords? The little girl said softly, because my older brother is a swordsman. These swords must be given to him. The beautiful woman glanced at the little girl but didn't say anything. The little girl put the swords away and asked, Is my older brother doing well in Pine Prefecture? The beautiful woman nodded. Very well. The little girl nodded slightly, and then she seemed to have thought of something and said coldly, Is Kuraki Academy still bullying him? The beautiful woman shook her head. I don't think so. In short, he's doing well. If anything happens, I'll report it to Holy Maiden. Now, Holy Maiden's top priority is to subdue the divine artifact within your body, attain the myriad Dharma realm, and charge into the top 5 of the monstrous genius rankings. The little girl nodded. I'll work hard. I'll protect my older brother well in the future. The beautiful woman glanced at the little girl and didn't say anything. Meanwhile, a waiter brought over 2 bowls of noodles, and after he placed them on the table, the waiter hurriedly ran away because it was truly too cold. On the other hand, the 2 hot bowls of noodles on the table had instantly frozen. After looking at the 2 bowls of noodles for a very long time, the little girl suddenly said softly, Brother, I miss you. She would never forget something. One night all those years ago, her older brother had returned with a bowl of steaming noodles, and there was even an egg in the noodles. She was overjoyed at the time. Because she'd never eaten noodles before, and she really wanted to eat a bowl of noodles, she asked her older brother to eat with her, and her older brother said he was full. She believed him. That night, her older brother sat in the corner and watched her eat, and every time she looked at her older brother would grin. That year, her older brother was 12 years old. Her mother had just left. To this day, she still didn't know how her older brother got that bowl of noodles. Every time she asked, her older brother would just grin. Qingzhou, Great Cloud Imperial Capital. Yi Xian's noodles were almost finished. At this time, a woman suddenly sat opposite Yi Xian. Yi Xian stopped and faced the woman in front of him. The woman was wearing a black, tight-fitting dress. On the dress was a black phoenix spreading its wings in the sky. The woman smiled and said, You don't mind, right? Yi Xian shook his head and continued to lower his head to eat the noodles. The woman ate a mouthful of noodles, then looked at Yi Xian. Let me introduce myself. My name is Lian Wanli. I changed my name myself. Does it sound nice? King Kaoshan. Yi Xian stopped, he had naturally heard of this name. The name of Great Cloud Empire's King Kaoshan, who didn't know of Great Cloud Realm? The woman took a sip of the soup and shook her head, It's a bit bland. What's the matter? Yi Xian asked. The woman smiled and said, Nothing, I just came to see you. After saying that, she stood up and looked at Yi Xian. Your strength is passable, and you're also quite handsome. How about this, follow me. This king will take you flying. Yi Xian put down his chopsticks. A straightforward person doesn't beat around the bush. Do you like me? Lian Wanli was stunned. Yi Xian said, Sorry, I already have someone I like. Lian Wanli said seriously, My palace's imperial doctor is not bad. Do you want to go see him? Yi Xian, Lian Wanli walked to Yi Xian's side. She gently patted Yi Xian's shoulder. Now, follow this king back to the palace. Let the imperial doctor take a look at you. Maybe you can still be saved. After saying that, she walked away. In front of the noodle stall, Yi Xian was silent for a moment, then began to eat the noodles. Soon, Yi Xian left. Half an hour later, Yi Xian arrived at Kuraki College. At this moment, Kuraki College was already filled with people, the surrounding roads were blocked so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Yi Xian was speechless. These people are all here to watch the show? Excuse me. Yi Xian squeezed forward. Excuse me, excuse me. At this moment, the man in front of Yi Xian suddenly turned around and glared at Yi Xian. What are you squeezing for? You don't want to live anymore. Yi Xian cupped his fists. Excuse me, I have something to do. The man said angrily. Something? Am I fine? Do you know that today is the day my brother-in-law comes to challenge Kuraki College? Yi Xian was stunned, then asked, Your brother-in-law is? The man snorted coldly. Yi Xian. Have you heard of him? Let me tell you, he is my brother-in-law. My sister is already pregnant with his child for 8 months. Yi Xian. Chapter 196. 8 months. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. What the hell was this? Becoming a father? More and more people were crowding around, and there was no space left. In the crowd, Yi Xian felt helpless. He had wanted to keep a low profile, but he had no choice but to leap into the air. In the air, he pointed with his fingers, and a sword landed firmly under his feet. Just like that, he slowly rode the sword into the distance. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Yi Xian. In the air, Yi Xian stood on the sword with his hands behind his back. He looked calm, and his hair fluttered in the wind, looking very elegant. He is Yi Xian. In the field, someone suddenly shouted. Yi Xian. In an instant, the crowd was in an uproar. Yi Xian. The youngest sword master of Jianghu, and could be said to be the most monstrous person in Jianghu. The elegance of a swordsman. Many people came here not only to watch the show, but also to see the elegance of a swordsman. After all, there were not many powerful swordsmen in Jianghu. In the crowd, a man looked at Yi Xian in the air with a dumbfounded expression. Bro. Brother-in-law. In the air, Yi Xian's speed on the sword was very slow. It was not that he wanted to be slow, but he could not go fast at all. He had not mastered the sword flight technique at all. His current state could not be considered sword flight at all. But others did not think so. In their eyes, he was slowly flying on the sword. Soon, under the crowd's gaze, Yi Xian came to a huge rock at the foot of Kuraki Academy's mountain. He pointed with his right hand, and the sword under his feet turned into a sword light and flew in front of him in a very elegant posture. This move immediately caused the crowd to boil. Too handsome. On the huge rock, Yi Xian turned around and pointed the sword in his hand to the ground. He looked up at Kuraki Academy's mountain. Kuraki Academy, does anyone dare to fight? Does anyone dare to challenge me? The crowd quieted down, and countless people raised their heads to look at Kuraki Academy. How would this superpower of Jianghu respond? They didn't have to wait too long. Soon, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared not far away from Yi Xian. Mu Qingxian. The dean of Kuraki Academy. Mu Qingxian looked at Yi Xian and was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly pointed his sword at Mu Qingxian. Don't talk nonsense. I'm here to kill, not to listen to your nonsense. With that, he raised his sword and rushed towards Kuraki Academy's mountain. Below, countless people were stunned. How could he be so tough? Mu Qingxuan's face was extremely gloomy. Since the establishment of Kuraki Academy, no one had ever treated them like this. Mu Qingxian suddenly turned around and roared, Yi Xian. As his voice fell, his aura grew weaker and weaker. In an instant, it had fallen to the divine combination realm. Suppressing one's realm. Everyone in the surroundings was dumbstruck. This Mu Qingxian was going to take the field personally. In the distance, Yi Xian stopped. He hadn't expected that Mu Qingxian would actually take the field himself. If Mu Qingxian were to forcefully suppress his realm here, then it would mean that it would truly be a battle of life and death. Because Mu Qingxian would absolutely not dare to return to the Dharma realm if he couldn't win. If Mu Qingxian did that, then the reputation of Karaki Academy that had existed for 1,000 years would be instantly destroyed. Mu Qingxian stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Don't you want to fight? I'll fight you. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished. A sharp and ear-piercing sound of something tearing resounded, and then a fist shot straight at Yi Xian's face. The fist contained a peerlessly overbearing and ferocious force that seemed capable of destroying everything. Yi Xian didn't greet this fist head-on. He dodged to the side and avoided it. At the same time, he twisted his wrist, and the spirit elegance sword in his hand slashed horizontally towards Mu Qingxuan's abdomen. Unfortunately, the sword hadn't even reached Mu Qingxuan's abdomen when a hand grabbed it. Mu Qingxuan's left hand. His 5 fingers gripped Yi Xian's sword tightly. Yi Xian's sword seemed to be welded, and it couldn't move at all. In the blink of an eye, Mu Qingxuan's left hand slid forward. His fist slammed into Yi Xian's abdomen. Bang! Yi Xian instantly retreated 200 feet. The surroundings quietened down. After repelling Yi Xian with a single strike, Mu Qingxian didn't attack again. He lowered his head and looked at his arm. There was a shallow sword mark there. At the last moment, when he sent Yi Xian flying with his fist, Yi Xian's sword had also slashed across his arm. It could be said that he only had a slight advantage in this confrontation. Mu Qingxian raised his head and looked at Yi Xian, who was not far away, with a solemn expression in his eyes. The exchange just now had allowed him to understand one thing, and that was that no one in the younger generation of Karaki Academy could contend against Yi Xian. It should be said that there were very few people in the younger generation of Qingzhou who could contend against Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian rubbed his abdomen. At this moment, he was somewhat astonished. Because at the critical moment just now, he had used the kindness sword intent to protect the crucial part of his abdomen. Originally, he had merely wanted to counteract Mu Qingxuan's power, but he discovered that if he gathered the kindness sword intent in one place, it was actually equivalent to a piece of armor, and this armor was even more useful than his armor of the earth. Mu Qingxuan's punch just now hadn't injured him at all, and he had only been shaken for a moment. This discovery made Yi Xian extremely pleasantly surprised. So the kindness sword intent could be used in this way. Or perhaps it should be said that the kindness sword intent was actually a way of defense. Because he discovered that the kindness sword intent's lethality wasn't that great. On the contrary, it was very useful in the aspect of defense. Quickly fight! Someone suddenly shouted from the crowd below. Everyone was speechless. Mu Qingxian glanced at Yi Xian. Come, let me see how monstrous you are. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly flew to a boulder that was dozens of feet tall beside him. He abruptly kicked the boulder, and the boulder instantly flew out and smashed towards Yi Xian, who was not far away. Yi Xian's face was expressionless as he took a swift step forward and stabbed with his sword. It was a simple and direct strike. Hiss! The boulder was instantly split into 2, but Yi Xian's sword was forcefully stopped because 2 fingers had clamped down on the tip of his sword. After clamping down on Yi Xian's sword, Mu Qingxian was about to attack when a flying sword suddenly slashed out from within Yi Xian's body. Mu Qingxuan's pupils constricted slightly, and he put his right hand together and flicked. Bang! The flying sword was slashed away, but another flying sword slashed over. Mu Qingxian tapped the tip of his foot lightly, and his entire body floated backward. However, the flying sword was still in front of him, and it was only a few inches away from his forehead. At this moment, he could clearly feel the sword light emitted by Yi Xian's flying sword. It was sharp and piercing. Mu Qingxian suddenly tilted his head and dodged the flying sword by a hair's breadth. However, another flying sword appeared in front of him. Mu Qingxian instantly retreated a few meters, but he quickly sprinted forward and punched out. Bang! He punched out, and the powerful force emitted from his fist forcibly blocked the 7 flying swords in front of him. However, it was unable to repel the 7 flying swords. At this moment, Yi Xian, who was riding his sword in the distance, suddenly rushed toward Mu Qingxian like a gust of wind. He held the spirit elegant sword, and within the sword, a wave of sword force was increasing at a terrifying speed. Gathering force. When Yi Xian was only a few meters away from Mu Qingxian, the sword force contained within the spirit elegant sword in Yi Xian's hand had far exceeded the force that a divine combination realm expert should have. Mu Qingxuan's expression became even more serious when he saw this scene. It should be said that it had changed from serious to fearful. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly leaped up. In the next moment, he held the sword with both hands and slashed down from above Mu Qingxuan's head. One sword to decide life and death. The moment Yi Xian's sword slashed down, the sword force instantly increased by several times. At this moment, the force contained within this sword was already approaching the myriad Dharma realm. Yi Xian hadn't reached the myriad Dharma realm, but this sword was approaching the myriad Dharma realm. Below, a trace of savagery flashed in Mu Qingxuan's eyes. His right foot swept backwards and he put his palms together. In an instant, the aura around his body surged. However, it hadn't recovered to the myriad Dharma realm. He was executing a powerful martial technique. When Yi Xian's sword was about 10 inches away from Mu Qingxuan's head, Mu Qingxian suddenly stomped on the ground with his right foot. He put his palms together and pushed upwards. Void obliteration. As soon as he said this, the top of Mu Qingxuan's head turned pitch black, and the sword light emitted by Yi Xian's sword disappeared without a trace. Not only that, but the pitch-black darkness was also spreading towards Yi Xian at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xian had been devoured. The surroundings quietened down. Everyone looked into the distance. Yi Xian died just like that. One breath later. Boom! A terrifying white stream of air suddenly erupted from the pitch-black darkness. Kindness sword intent. This kindness sword intent actually began to devour the pitch-black darkness. At the same time, a sword light slashed down from the white stream of air. Bang! Under the gazes of countless people, Mu Qingxian was instantly blasted hundreds of feet away. Only when he crashed into a mountain wall did he stop. The mountain wall behind him violently trembled and directly cracked. Everyone turned their heads to the right. The pitch-black space had returned to normal. There stood a man holding a long sword. The man's body emitted a white mist. Materialized sword intent. Yi Xian. Numerous people looked at each other in disdain. Did Yi Xian win? Yi Xian carried his sword and walked towards Mu Qingxian in the distance. At this moment, blood constantly flowed from the corner of Mu Qingxuan's mouth. There were more than a dozen sword wounds on his body. Each of them was extremely deep and injured his insides. Seriously injured. Mu Qingxian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stared at Yi Xian. What an overbearing sword technique. What a strong sword intent. Materialized sword intent. What kind of sword intent is this? Yi Xian stopped several feet away from Mu Qingxian. He pointed his sword at Mu Qingxian. Restore the 10,000 Dharma realm. Restore the 10,000 Dharma realm. Everyone was stunned. What did Yi Xian want to do? Was he courting death? It must be known that Yi Xian was only at the ethereal opening realm. Mu Qingxian stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said again, "Don't worry. The world will not say that your Kuraki Academy is bullying the weak, nor will they say that you are greedy for life and afraid of death. They will not say that your Kuraki Academy is shameless. It should not affect your Kuraki Academy's 1,000-year reputation. Come, don't have any worries. Quickly restore to the 10,000 Dharma realm." Everyone, P.S. I borrowed a wireless update from the roadside. I ran 3 streets before I found a wireless update that didn't require a password. Chapter 197. He had recovered to the Dharma realm. Everyone present looked at Mu Qingxian. Would Mu Qingxian recover to the Dharma realm? Mu Qingxian looked at Yi Xian while blood flowed incessantly from the corners of his mouth. He was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly raised his sword and charged at him. Yi Xian was extremely swift, and he arrived in front of Mu Qingxian in the blink of an eye. Then, a sword was pointed straight at Mu Qingshuan's forehead. It was extremely swift, like a white steed flashing past a crack. Mu Qingshuan's pupils constricted slightly, and he suddenly pressed his hands together in front of him. Bang! Mu Qingshuan's palms forcefully pressed against Yi Xian's spirit-elegant sword, but the ground beneath his feet instantly cracked open. At the same time, a flying sword suddenly slashed at him from the side like a bolt of lightning. Mu Qingshuan's expression changed drastically. He spread his hands apart, and then he pressed them forward. A powerful force poured out from his palms. Bang! Yi Xian's flying sword was forcefully blocked by this force. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly leaped up lightly and slashed down with his sword. Mu Qingshuan's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a wisp of ferocity in them. At this moment, he had nowhere to retreat because the mountain wall was right behind him. There was no way out. Mu Qingxian suddenly squatted down, and the ground beneath his feet that had already cracked open instantly exploded apart. In the blink of an eye, he suddenly rose up from the ground, and his fist met Yi Xian's sword. When his fist was around 10 inches away from Yi Xian's sword, his fist suddenly spun. Hiss! The sound of air exploding suddenly resounded. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's sword descended. Bang! Mu Qingshuan's fist forcefully blocked Yi Xian's sword, but his feet were still squatting down. Moreover, the mountain wall behind him was cracking layer by layer, and the cracks were spreading towards the surroundings at an extremely fast speed. The surroundings suddenly fell silent. Countless elders and students stared fixedly at the mountain wall, and they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. In midair, Yi Xian held his sword with both hands and suddenly pressed it downwards. The spirit-elegant sword directly broke through the light on Mu Qingshuan's fist, and the sword descended straight down. Chi! Mu Qingshuan's entire right arm was instantly cut off, but Mu Qingxian clenched his left hand into a fist and punched Yi Xian's abdomen. Bang! Yi Xian's entire body flew in a circle in the air before crashing to the ground. Where he landed, the ground instantly exploded. However, it didn't take long for him to crawl back up. After that, he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and pointed forward. Chi! A flying sword flew past and headed straight for the distant Mu Qingxian. Mu Qingxian rushed forward and punched with his left hand. Bang! The flying sword was instantly blasted away, but after this flying sword, there were 6 sword lights. Mu Qingshuan's pupils shrank to the size of needles. He pointed a finger at his forehead, and in an instant, a powerful aura swept out of his body. This aura was close to the Dharma boundary, but it was not the Dharma boundary. Even he couldn't bring forth the strength of the Dharma boundary while at the divine combination realm. Under the gazes of everyone, Mu Qingxian took a step forward and pointed a finger forward. Space actually became slightly illusory where his fingertip descended, and Yi Xian's 6 swords were forcefully stopped and couldn't move an inch forward. However, Mu Qingshuan's entire body trembled violently. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly pointed a finger at himself, and the 6 swords transformed into 6 rays of light that flew back into the sword chest on his back. A moment of silence ensued. A sword howl suddenly resounded, and in the blink of an eye, 7 rays of light suddenly shot into the sky from behind Yi Xian. This chapter isn't finished. Please continue to the next page. Yi Xian took a step forward and pointed his right hand at Mu Qingxian. In the sky, the 7 swords shot down like 7 bolts of lightning. Mu Qingxian looked up from below, and his eyes were filled with madness. At this point, he had no way out, and he could only fight with his life on the line. The swords hadn't descended when Mu Qingxian suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, and his figure shot into the sky to greet the swords. In midair, he slapped his palm forward, and the entire sky instantly became slightly illusory. This palm strike was comparable to the Dharma boundary. It could be said that it was similar to Yi Xian's attack from before, and it had attained the limits of the divine combination realm. Bang! In midair, the 7 swords were forced to a stop by a powerful force, and the light on them vanished at this moment. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly charged over with his sword in hand and slashed. Bang! Mu Qingxian was blasted flying. Yi Xian was just about to attack again when countless people obstructed him. Besides the instructors and elders of Karaki Academy, countless students of Karaki Academy surrounded Yi Xian. A wave of hissing instantly resounded from the crowd below when they witnessed this scene. A one-on-one battle. Yi Xian and Mu Qingxian were fighting one-on-one, and Mu Qingxian was a realm higher than Yi Xian. Under such circumstances, Karaki Academy actually wanted to gang up on him. Shameless. Too shameless. The expressions of the elders, instructors, and students of Karaki Academy instantly turned unsightly. Not far away, Yi Xian shook his head and sighed. What are all of you trying to do? As he spoke, he looked at Mu Qingxian. Dean Mu, if you can't beat him, then just say it. I absolutely won't kill you. There's no need for so many people to surround me. Pooh. Mu Qingxian spat out a mouthful of blood, and he stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Besides resentment, there was also a complicated look in his eyes. At this moment, he finally witnessed how terrifying Yi Xian was. After all, Yi Xian was only at the Nether Passage realm now. If Yi Xian reached the Divine Combination realm, at that time, it was very likely that Yi Xian would be able to fight against the Dharma boundary. Too monstrous. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, Dean Mu, in the end, do you want to fight one-on-one or gang up on me? Just say it. One-on-one. A voice suddenly resounded from the crowd below. One-on-one. Soon, more and more voices resounded. Yi Xian suddenly faced the crowd below, and his left hand lightly pressed down. Everyone immediately quieted down. Yi Xian smiled and said, Let me introduce myself. I'm Yi Xian, the Dean of Blue Waves Academy, nicknamed the most handsome man of Jianghu country. Hearing this, countless people below couldn't help but burst into laughter. Yi Xian pointed his sword at the students of Karaki Academy. Karaki Academy, is there anyone who wants to fight? Yi Xian. A student of Karaki Academy stood up, and he stared fixedly at Yi Xian. You, whoosh. The sound of breaking air resounded, and this student's voice came to an abrupt stop, because a sword had unknowingly pierced his throat. In an instant, the surroundings became quiet. Yi Xian lightly moved his finger, and the sword in the throat of that student immediately flew back to him. He took out a white silk handkerchief and gently wiped the blood on the sword. I came to kill, not to chat. Finished speaking, he looked at the students of Karaki Academy not far away. Next. Those students of Karaki Academy stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and each and every one of them had an ashen complexion, but no one dared to move. This chapter is not over, please turn the page. Yi Xian suddenly shook his head and smiled, then he looked at Mu Qingxian not far away. Dean Mu, isn't your Karaki Academy trying every means possible to get rid of me? Now, I am standing in front of you, but why are you all so cowardly? Yi Xian. A student suddenly stood up, and he glared at Yi Xian. Don't go too far, my Karaki Academy. At this time, Yi Xian held the sword in his right hand and swung it to the right. Chi. More than 10 zhang away, the head of the student of Karaki Academy instantly flew. Blood spurted out like a fountain. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the spiritual beauty sword flew back into his palm. Holding the sword, he pointed it at the students from Karaki Academy who were extremely enraged. Going too far? Today, I will go too far. I won't talk nonsense with you. Come, all of you under the 10,000 laws realm of Karaki Academy, come at me together. I will fight all of you alone. As soon as he said this, the crowd immediately went into an uproar. One must know that there were over 1,000 students of Karaki Academy. One person against 1,000? Was Yi Xian crazy? And when those Karaki Academy students heard Yi Xian's words, their faces instantly turned purple from anger. At this time, how could they still endure? Soon, the students dashed towards Yi Xian one after another. Yi Xian grinned, and the sword sheath on his back violently trembled. In an instant, 7 swords suddenly flew out, and in an instant, 7 Karaki Academy students were pierced through the chests by these 7 swords, and they fell to the ground on the spot. Stay your hand. Mu Qingshuan's voice suddenly resounded, and the students of Karaki Academy stopped successively. However, Yi Xian didn't stop at all. He held his sword in hand as he charged at them, and everywhere he passed, the students of Karaki Academy fell to the ground. How presumptuous! Mu Qingxian suddenly roared furiously. In an instant, he'd vanished on the spot, and he was in front of Yi Xian when his figure appeared once more. However, Yi Xian grinned instead. Mu Qingshuan's expression changed drastically when he saw Yi Xian smile, and he was just about to recover his cultivation. However, it was slightly too late. Unknowingly, 12 golden men had appeared around him. The 12 golden figures attacked in unison. At the same time, a strand of light flashed. A single strike to decide life and death. The expressions of the myriad laws realm experts of Karaki Academy changed drastically when they witnessed this scene, and they were just about to attack. However, the 12 golden figures had already retreated behind Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's sword had stabbed into the center of Mu Qingshuan's forehead. The surroundings fell silent once more. That's it? That's it? The minds of all the instructors and students of Karaki Academy had gone blank. Mu Qingxian stared fixedly at Yi Xian and grinned. You've been waiting for this moment for a long time, right? Do you think it's over now? No. This is just the beginning. Yi Xian, even if I die, there are still countless Mu Qingshuans in the headquarters. You. Meanwhile, Yi Xian raised his sword and slashed forward. Hiss. The sword pierced through Mu Qingshuan's head, and Mu Qingshuan's voice stopped abruptly. Yi Xian looked at Mu Qingxian and shook his head. Countless Mu Qingshuans? I'm so scared. As soon as he finished speaking, he slashed with the sword in his hand. Hiss. Mu Qingshuan's head instantly flew into the air. The surroundings were completely silent. Yi Xian flicked the spirit elegant sword lightly, and Mu Qingshuan's spatial ring instantly flew to him. He didn't look at it and just put it away. After that, he looked up at the instructors and students of Karaki Academy. You haven't had your fill of killing, and you still want to kill? What do you think I should do? Everyone was speechless. End of this chapter. Chapter 198. He hasn't had his fill yet. He still wants to kill. The surroundings were deathly silent as everyone looked at Yi Xian. Does Yi Xian really want to challenge the entire Karaki Academy by himself? Halfway up the mountain, a woman was sitting on a tree branch, her smooth jade-like feet swinging gently. The corners of the woman's mouth curled up slightly as she gazed at Yi Xian. He hasn't had his fill yet, he still wants to kill. A man should be like this. Behind the woman was an armored woman who wore a sword. She glanced at Yi Xian and didn't speak. The woman seemed to have thought of something, and she suddenly turned around to look at the armored woman behind her and said with a smile, Aswa, compared to him, whose sword Dao is superior? The armored woman lowered her head slightly and didn't speak. The woman grinned as she turned around to look down, and then she lightly twirled a strand of her beautiful hair in her hand. Everyone in the world says that Yi Xian is the youngest sword master of my Pine Prefecture. Actually, Aswa, you're the youngest sword master of my Pine Prefecture. A sword master being a guard by my side is such a waste of talent. The armored woman's expression changed slightly when she heard this, and then she suddenly knelt down on one knee. My king, Aswa is willing to follow you for eternity. The woman smiled and said, Stand up. Let's see how this farce will end with me. As soon as she finished speaking, she looked at Yi Xian with a faint smile on her face. Below. Yi Xian stood in confrontation with over 1,000 Karaki Academy students with his sword in hand. Meanwhile, an elder of Karaki Academy walked over to Yi Xian. Yi Xian, why do you have to be so ruthless? Ruthless? The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. I should be the one asking you, Karaki Academy. Since the beginning until now, how many times has your Karaki Academy pursued me? Have you counted? The elder was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly said, "Cut the crap. Either all of you die, or I die. I won't stop until I'm dead." As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his sword and charged towards the students of Kuraki Academy. The expressions of those students from Kuraki Academy turned grim when they saw Yi Xian attack, but they didn't flee, and they charged towards Yi Xian instead. One person against 1,000. Seeing that Yi Xian was really going to fight 1,000 people alone, countless people below were dumbfounded. 1,000. As for these Kuraki Academy students, were they all ordinary trash? Obviously not. They were the elites of Great Cloud Empire. Of course, regardless of whether he could win or not, countless people here still admired Yi Xian very much. Because Yi Xian dared to hit them. In the crowd, Yi Xian wielded the Spirit Grace sword and slashed continuously. Every time he slashed, a Kuraki college student would fall. Although these Kuraki Academy students were elites, none of them could take a single blow from Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian didn't have it easy either, because every time he killed one, another would immediately charge at him. At this moment, he had some injuries on his body. Fortunately, he had the protection of the kindness sword intent. Otherwise, his situation would be even more serious. As for the 12 golden men, he didn't want to use them for the time being. He only had less than 1 million supreme-grade spirit stones, which meant that he could only activate them once at most. This time, he had to save them for the critical moment. Kill. In the crowd, Yi Xian had gone crazy. He had killed 50 to 60 people since the beginning. All of them were killed with a single strike. None of the 10,000 Laws Realm experts from Kuraki Academy made a move. They could only watch as Yi Xian slaughtered the students of Kuraki Academy. Sword Immortal. Everyone in the world knew that there was a Sword Immortal behind Yi Xian, and this Sword Immortal was very protective of his people. After all, there was still a sword and a head nailed to the righteous hall of Kuraki Academy. Helplessness. Confusion. This was the mood of the 10,000 Laws Realm experts of Kuraki Academy at this moment. If the few of them made a move, they would definitely be able to kill Yi Xian. However, they just couldn't. And if they didn't make a move, Yi Xian might really kill all of the younger generation of Kuraki Academy if things went on like this. At that time, Kuraki Academy would really exist in name only. Bang! At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly flew out heavily. After flying for more than a dozen feet, he crashed to the ground. He had just gotten up when more than a dozen Kuraki Academy students had already rushed in front of him. At this moment, these students were also in a killing frenzy. Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Chi! 2 rays of sword light shot out from his eyes like 2 thunderbolts, and the dozen Kuraki Academy students who had just rushed in front of him were instantly killed by these 2 rays of sword light. But soon, more than a dozen people rushed up. Yi Xian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, raised his sword, and rushed up. Kill. At this moment, there was only one thought in Yi Xian's mind, and that was to kill. At this moment, a man in black suddenly appeared behind Yi Xian, and Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed down with his sword. Bang! The man in black was directly slashed in half, and blood splattered. However, another man in black had suddenly appeared behind Yi Xian. Chi! A dagger stabbed into the back of Yi Xian's neck, but it was blocked by Yi Xian's goodwill sword intent. However, a few more rays of cold light quietly appeared around Yi Xian, and these cold lights were aimed at his various vital points. At this critical moment, the sword box behind Yi Xian suddenly trembled violently, and in an instant, 7 rays of sword light shook from within the sword box. Bang! 6 men in black were instantly blasted away by more than a dozen feet. But soon, these 6 men in black disappeared on the spot. Yi Xian frowned deeply, and just as he was about to attack, a petite figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Yi Xian was stunned. Little Demon Tuoba. Little Demon Tuoba grinned, "Swordsman, your horse." With that said, she pointed below, and there stood a black flame horse. Yi Xian was about to say something, but little demon Tuoba suddenly turned around and swung her hammer down. Bang! A Kuraki College student was instantly sent flying. Little demon Tuoba looked around, and she spat at the crowd. Tui, so many people attacking one person. Shameless. With that said, she leaped and smashed down with her hammer. Bang! The entire ground shook violently, and more than 30 Kuraki College students were sent flying. Yi Xian hurriedly came to little demon Tuoba's side, and he pulled her sleeve. What are you doing here? Little demon Tuoba rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. I'm here to help you fight, of course. Yi Xian said in a low voice, this is my business. Don't get involved. Little demon Tuoba thought for a moment, and then she said, my father said that when we're outside, we must be loyal. Do you know what loyalty means? Loyalty is. I won't say it. In any case, you know what it means, right? Yi Xian was speechless. Little demon Tuoba moved closer to Yi Xian, and then she asked in an extremely serious manner, I'm very loyal, right? Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Little demon, Kuraki College and Dark World are very powerful in the Central Divine Continent. If you get involved, you might implicate your family. Little demon Tuoba waved her hand, and she didn't seem to care at all. Don't worry, my father is very good at fighting, my uncle is very good at fighting, and my third uncle is not bad as well. Yi Xian intended to say something else, but little demon Tuoba suddenly patted him on the shoulder. My father always said that a man will die for those who understand him. Even though I can't die for you, I can still help you fight. As soon as she finished speaking, she glanced at the surroundings while holding the hammer in her hand. I'm little demon Tuoba. My father is very good at fighting, my uncle is very good at fighting, and my third uncle is very formidable as well. Don't worry, little demon Tuoba, don't rely on my father. If I can't defeat all of you, then I absolutely won't call myself my father. Of course, if my father himself comes to fight all of you, then it's none of my business. All of them were speechless. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He didn't attack again, and he started walking up the mountain instead. Little demon Tuoba glanced at the others in the surroundings, and then she said seriously, my father is really very good at fighting. As soon as she finished speaking, she quickly followed behind Yi Xian. As they watched Yi Xian and little demon Tuoba walk up the mountain, all the students of Kuraki College had extremely unsightly expressions on their faces. However, none of them dared to attack. None of the 10,000 Dharma realm experts dared to stop them either. Just like that, Yi Xian and little demon Tuoba arrived at Kuraki College's mountain without a hitch. Yi Xian and little demon Tuoba passed through several halls and finally arrived in front of Kuraki College's noble hall. As he stood in front of the noble hall, Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the horizontal board above the noble hall. On the board was a sword condensed from tree leaves, and there was a head impaled on the sword. Tree leaf sword. Yi Xian grinned. With a light tap of his feet, his entire body flew into the air. Very quickly, he grabbed the leaf sword. It was ice cold to the touch. Yi Xian pulled out the tree leaf sword and landed steadily on the ground. However, he frowned deeply. This was because he realized that there was nothing special about this tree leaf sword. It was just a simple tree leaf. What was going on? Wasn't this a divine weapon? Yi Xian was a little confused. At that moment, he truly felt that this sword was just a tree leaf. There was nothing special about it. It was not even comparable to an ordinary sword. If he was given time, he could even make a tree leaf sword like this. It was a sword condensed from tree leaves. Yi Xian held the tree leaf sword and stood rooted to the spot. At that moment, Yi Xian was petrified and did not say a word. Countless Kuraki College students surrounded them, but no one dared to make a move. Little demon Tuoba swung the small nail hammer in his hand and constantly sized up the Kuraki College students with an unfriendly expression. Just like that, after a stalemate of about 15 minutes, Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Little demon Tuoba looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. I understand. Little demon Tuoba blinked. Understand what? Yi Xian chuckled. Sword Immortal sister wants to tell me a principle. Swordsman, if a person is strong, even if he is holding a tree branch, he can still destroy the world. Talent is the foundation. Just as he finished speaking, the tree leaf sword in his hands suddenly transformed into a sword beam and soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the tree leaf sword disappeared over the horizon. The country of Jianghu. Leaves suddenly appeared on countless barren trees, central plains, Kuraki College. After the tree leaf sword disappeared, Yi Xian's heart warmed. This was because Sword Immortal sister was not only teaching him sword Dao, but also many other principles. Reining in his thoughts, Yi Xian turned to face the Kuraki College students. Just as he was about to attack, he seemed to think of something and suddenly turned to Little Demon Tuoba. Little Demon, go to Kuraki College's treasury. Take whatever you see. Take everything that's valuable. Little Demon Tuoba blinked. I'm a little embarrassed. Yi Xian was about to console him when Little Demon Tuoba turned and ran to Kuraki College's treasury. Yi Xian was speechless. Was this what you meant by embarrassed? Yi Xian. At this moment, nearby 10,000 Dharma Realm powerhouse from Kuraki College glared at him. Don't go too far. I'm going too far. Yi Xian suddenly pointed his sword at the 10,000 Dharma Realm powerhouse. You don't like it? Hit me if you don't like it. The 10,000 Dharma Realm powerhouse was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He suddenly turned to look at the other 10,000 Dharma Realm powerhouses beside him and roared, "You've already bullied us to this extent. What are you still holding back? Let's join forces and fight to the death with him. At worst, we'll just die. Fight to the death." Countless Kuraki College students roared in unison. The other 10,000 Dharma Realm powerhouses also looked at each other with determination in their eyes. Kill him. At this moment, a 10,000 Dharma Realm powerhouse suddenly roared. The next moment, all the people from Kuraki College were about to attack. At this moment, all the people from Kuraki College, whether they were mentors, elders, or students, were ready to fight to the death. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly looked up. Master? You're here? In an instant, everyone from Kuraki College stopped. P.S. How many readers have formed the habit of opening it before 9 every day to see Sword Venerable? If there are, leave a message. I want to see if there are any familiar faces from the beginning of Sword Domain until now. If there are, I'll reply you. I've been writing books for 3 or 4 years, punctually at 8 or 9. I don't need to be popular, but I want to have a clear conscience. Love you all. Leave the most handsome blue phoenix. Chapter 199. Master. In the field, the 10,000 Dharma Realm powerhouses from Kuraki College looked up, their faces full of dread, or rather, fear. Sword Immortal. In the land of Jianghu, a Sword Immortal was enough to sweep away everything. Especially at this moment, with Mu Qingshuan's death, the current Kuraki College simply could not compete with a Sword Immortal. A Sword Immortal was enough to destroy them all. Not far away, Yi Xian raised his head and listened. After a moment, he suddenly shook his head. No, master, you don't have to do anything, disciple can deal with these people myself. After saying that, he raised his ear a little more, as if listening to something. After a moment, Yi Xian shook his head again. Master, if you do everything, how can disciple grow? Don't worry about this matter for now, disciple can deal with it myself. What? 10,000 Dharma Realm? No, the 10,000 Dharma Realm powerhouses have not made a move yet. If they do, you can do it, how about it? Hearing Yi Xian's words, the 10,000 Dharma Realm powerhouses from Kuraki College suddenly looked ugly. 10,000 Dharma Realm powerhouses. Wasn't this referring to them? At this moment, Yi Xian bowed deeply to the sky. Master, rest assured, as long as the 10,000 Dharma realm powerhouses do not come, disciple will not call you. However, if the 10,000 Dharma realm powerhouses come, disciple can only ask you to help. Everyone, Yi Xian looked up at the 10,000 Dharma realm powerhouses. You guys, did you just say that you want to fight to the death? One of the 10,000 Dharma realm powerhouses said fiercely, Yi Xian, do you think your master can scare us? Yi Xian smiled, scare you? No, no. I really hope that you can help, really, as long as you do it, my master will definitely help, and then, your Kuraki college can be easily destroyed. For me personally, it is really a great thing. After saying that, he walked in front of the 10,000 Dharma realm powerhouse. Come, hit me, hurry, I promise not to fight back. The myriad law realm expert's eyes were red with anger. He was about to attack, but he was stopped by a few people next to him. Among the people who stopped him, an old man said in a deep voice, don't fall for it. This person is intentionally provoking you, wanting you to make a move. Once you make a move, you will fall into his trap. The rest of the people nodded their heads in agreement. The Dharma realm powerhouse stared at Yi Xian with bloodshot eyes and undisguised killing intent. Yi Xian took 2 more steps forward. Kill me. Come on. Come here. Hearing that, the Dharma realm powerhouse almost went berserk, but he was stopped by the others. Yi Xian didn't say anything else. He shrugged and retreated to the side. It could be seen that if he continued to provoke him, things might really go south. At that moment, Tuoba came out. Little Tuoba skipped over to Yi Xian and said excitedly, do you know how many gold coins there are? Yi Xian shook his head. Little demon Tuoba glared at Yi Xian. Guess, hurry up and guess. Yi Xian was speechless. How was she supposed to guess? Little demon Tuoba suddenly raised his hand and slapped Yi Xian's shoulder. Then, he excitedly raised 2 or 3 fingers and said, that's a total of 3 billion gold coins. And a total of 26 million supreme grade spirit stones. 26 million. As she said that, she approached Yi Xian and smiled strangely. Guess what else? Yi Xian shook his head. A spirit stone suddenly appeared in little monster Tuoba's hand. It was not a top-grade spirit stone, but a jade-grade spirit stone. Little demon Tuoba grinned. A total of 1,300 jade-grade spirit stones. As she said that, she hugged Yi Xian and planted a fierce kiss on Yi Xian's cheek. I'm rich. I'm rich, ah. Yi Xian, at the side, the expressions of the Kuraki Academy students were as ugly as could be. This was robbing Kuraki Academy right in front of them. After little demon Tuoba rejoiced for a while, she suddenly looked at Yi Xian. Did I kiss you just now? Yi Xian hurriedly shook his head. No, no. Little demon Tuoba stared straight at Yi Xian. I kissed you. I'm very sure. Yi Xian thought about it and then approached little demon Tuoba and kissed her little cheek. Alright, we're even. Little demon Tuoba was stunned on the spot. She touched her cheek that Yi Xian had kissed. You kissed me? Yi Xian nodded. You kissed me just now as well. We didn't lose out. What do you think? Little demon Tuoba thought about it and then nodded. That seems to be true. As she said that, she looked around. What do we do now? What do we do? Before Yi Xian could speak, the Kuraki Academy students had already surrounded the 2 of them. Little demon Tuoba pointed at the Kuraki Academy students one by one. Moments later, she looked at Yi Xian. I counted. There are still over 800 people. I can fight 300. Can you handle the remaining 500? Yi Xian thought about it and then said, it's a little difficult. Little demon Tuoba thought about it and then said, then give me another 100. I can fight 400. But I might not be able to win. Yi Xian asked, how confident are you? Little demon Tuoba said, less than 90%, 90%. Yi Xian looked at little demon Tuoba and said with astonishment, less than 90%? Little Demon Tuoba nodded. I'm not 100% confident. As she spoke, she gazed at Yi Xian. My dad said that it's best not to do something that I'm not 100% confident in. But I'm willing to take a risk for you. Yi Xian spoke seriously. I'm very touched. I really am. Little Demon Tuoba blinked. Then why aren't you crying? I would cry when I'm touched. Yi Xian was speechless. Little Demon Tuoba wanted to say something else. However, Yi Xian suddenly said, why don't we start fighting? We can't let them wait for us for too long. Little Demon Tuoba nodded, and then she turned around to look at the Karaki Academy students. I'm not lying to all of you. All of you will die if I hit you with my hammer. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly smashed the hammer against the ground. Bang! The ground in front of her instantly cracked open, and the crack spread extremely quickly. In the blink of an eye, they had spread to the group of Karaki Academy students. Their expressions changed drastically, and they retreated explosively. Meanwhile, Little Demon Tuoba smashed the hammer against the ground once more. Bang! The ground beneath the group of Karaki Academy students in the distance instantly cracked open, and a few dozen of them were blasted flying. At the instant that they were blasted flying, 7 of them were instantly pierced through the chests by 7 swords, and they perished on the spot. Yi Xian and Little Demon Tuoba were just about to attack again when a strand of formidable pressure suddenly enveloped them, causing their expressions to change drastically. Yi Xian hurriedly pulled Little Demon Tuoba behind him, and then the kindness sword intense swept out from within him to form a thick barrier in front of him. Bang! The kindness sword intent barrier collapsed in an instant, and then Little Demon Tuoba and Yi Xian were instantly blasted 300 m away. As soon as they stopped moving, a wisp of blood seeped out from the corner of Yi Xian's mouth, and it flowed incessantly while the clothes on his chest were instantly dyed red with blood. On the other hand, a middle-aged man had suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian and Little Demon Tuoba. The middle-aged man wore an embroidered and luxurious robe, and an ancient tree was embroidered on the robe. There were numerous white clouds around the top of the tree. Moreover, there were 3 large golden words on the left side of his chest: Left Academy Emissary. Left Academy Emissary. The expressions of the instructors and elders of Karaki Academy changed drastically when they saw these 3 words, and then all of them arrived before the middle-aged man and bowed deeply. Greetings, Left Academy Emissary. Left Academy Emissary. He was the true second in command of Karaki Academy's headquarters. In Karaki Academy's headquarters, the highest authority was naturally the dean, and beneath the dean were the left and right academy emissaries. They were the true figures that held true authority in Karaki Academy's headquarters. The left academy emissary glanced at everyone here and spoke indifferently. Is Mu Qingxian here? One of the Karaki Academy elders had a downcast expression. Dean Mu has perished. The left academy emissary frowned slightly. Has that sword immortal woman already taken action? The elder shook his head. Not that sword immortal, but that Yi Xian. Dean Mu lowered his realm to fight Yi Xian, and in the end. When he heard this, the left academy emissary's gaze fell on Yi Xian. He sized up Yi Xian. A sword master who isn't even 20 years old. Your talent is rare, even in the central divine continent. Little Demon Tuoba stood in front of Yi Xian and looked coldly at the left academy emissary. Tui. You shameless bastard. How dare you bully the weak? The left academy emissary glanced at Little Demon Tuoba. Tuoba family. Fine, I'll give your Tuoba family some face. With that, he waved his right hand lightly. Little Demon Tuoba, who was nearby, was immobilized by a force. She quickly floated to the side. The left academy emissary glanced at the Karaki Academy elder. Take her to the side. Don't hurt her. The elder nodded and hurriedly took Little Demon Tuoba to the side. During this time, Little Demon Tuoba could not move at all. The left academy emissary looked at Yi Xian and slowly walked to a spot several dozen feet in front of Yi Xian. Today, we shall settle the grudge between you and my Kuraki Academy. Of course, I didn't come here for you. You don't have the honor to make me come here personally. With that said, he slowly clenched his right hand. Have your master come out. As his voice fell, a thin old man appeared behind him. The old man's back was slightly hunched and he held a black walking stick in his hand. Around the walking stick, there were 3 strands of black air currents. At the top of the walking stick, there was an eye that was moving. The thin elder glanced at Yi Xian and grinned. His smile was somewhat sinister. I heard that your master is very good at fighting. We want to spar with her. With that said, 11 people suddenly appeared behind him. These 11 people were all dressed in black robes and black felt hats. They held long staffs in their hands. Including the Left Academy emissary, there were a total of 13 people. These 13 people were unfathomable, like the vast starry sky. Yi Xian was silent. This time, they were not here for him. They were here for Sister Sword Celestial. Sister Sword Celestial, they're here for you, not me. Yi Xian said softly in his heart. He had thought that there would be no response. However, a long-lost voice suddenly sounded in his mind. I really want to destroy your world with my sword. It's so annoying to watch. Yi Xian, at this moment, the Left Academy emissary suddenly said calmly, why? You don't dare to come out? Chapter 200. Afraid to come out? Yi Xian had a strange expression on his face. He knew that the Left Academy emissary and the others were very, very strong, so strong that it exceeded his current understanding. But he also knew that the sword Immortal sister inside him was even stronger. There was no basis for it. It was just an intuition. His intuition told him that the sword Immortal sister was not joking when she said that she could destroy the world with a single strike. She might really be able to do it, even though he felt that destroying a world with a single strike was absurd. Who was the sword Immortal sister? How strong was she? That was what Yi Xian had always wanted to know. Opposite Yi Xian, the Left Academy emissary said indifferently, what? You're a mighty sword immortal. Are you going to be a coward? The mysterious woman still did not come out. Something was not right. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He knew that the mysterious woman had a bad temper. Under normal circumstances, she should have already come out. But now, she had not come out despite the Left Academy emissary's insults. It was very strange. Yi Xian was about to ask when the mysterious woman's voice suddenly sounded in his mind, let me think about it. Think about what? Yi Xian asked instinctively. Think about whether I should destroy your world with a single strike. Yi Xian, the Left Academy emissary, frowned impatiently when he saw that the mysterious woman still had not appeared. He was about to speak when an old man suddenly appeared. The old man wore a loose robe, and his hair and beard were all white. A trace of seriousness appeared in the Left Academy emissary's eyes when he saw the old man. World Protector. In the firmament world, each of the 3 prefectures was protected by a group of mysterious people. These mysterious people were the world protectors. This was an extremely mysterious power. Let alone Kuraki Academy, even some of the superpowers of the Central Divine Prefecture didn't dare to offend them. Their duty was to protect the states. The old man glanced coldly at the Left Academy emissary. So many people have come here. Do you want to completely destroy Azure Prefecture? The Left Academy emissary smiled slightly. How could that be? It's just killing a sword immortal. It's not to that extent. The old man said indifferently, no matter who you want to kill, coming here with your strength is already against the rules. The minister of the left pondered for a moment. After a moment, he flicked his finger and a storage ring flew in front of the old man. Please make an exception. The old man glanced at the storage ring. There were 1,000 purple crystals the size of fists inside. Violet origin crystal. This was an extremely precious item. A single purple Genesis crystal was equivalent to 100,000 top-grade spirit stones. Most importantly, it was relatively difficult to obtain. Hence, under normal circumstances, 100,000 top-grade spirit stones would not even be enough to exchange for a single purple Genesis crystal. Top-grade spirit stones and jade-grade spirit stones were useful for martial artists under the 10,000 Dharma boundary, but they were not very useful for experts in the 10,000 Dharma boundary and above. The purple origin crystal could satisfy experts of the Dharma controlling realm and above. 1,000 purple Genesis crystals could be said to be a very large sum. After a moment of silence, the old man glanced at the left dean. "Don't make too much noise." With that, he put away the storage ring, turned around, and disappeared into the horizon. After the realm protector left, the left dean's gaze once again fell on Yi Xian. "Are you sure she won't come out?" Yi Xian said seriously, "My master is already on his way. You can wait for a moment." The left dean frowned slightly. "On his way? From where?" Yi Xian pointed to the sky. "From above." The left dean turned and exchanged a glance with the skinny old man behind him. The skinny old man said in a low voice, "Left dean, are you sure that person is just a sword immortal without any background?" The left dean nodded. "Elder Su, don't worry. Before coming here, Kuraki Academy had already asked the Heaven Secrets sect to investigate this person. The Heaven Secrets sect has already investigated this person. There is no record of this person in any of the major transcendental forces. Even some of the super forces in other realms have no records of this person. Therefore, the Heaven Secrets sect has concluded that this person is an itinerant sword immortal with no background." Elder Su asked in a low voice, "Did you investigate her background?" The left dean shook his head. "Not yet. However, Kuraki Academy has investigated. There is no such person in any of the transcendental forces. For a sword immortal to be so low-key, she must be an itinerant cultivator. She is alone and has no background." Elder Su nodded. "That's for the best. Of course, even if she has some background, as long as it is not one of the top transcendental forces, we have nothing to fear." The left dean smiled. "Don't worry. She is just a sword immortal. There is nothing to worry about." With that, he turned to look at the nearby Yi Xian. "If she does not arrive in 15 minutes, I will skin you alive and hang your corpse in front of Kuraki Academy's main gate. Not only you, but everyone around you will also die. I want the world to know what happens to those who oppose Kuraki Academy." Yi Xian ignored the left dean. He only wanted to know why this sword immortal sister had not come out yet. At that moment, the mysterious woman's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. "By some time." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "Senior, are you still considering whether or not to destroy the world?" The mysterious woman said calmly, "Do you think I can't do it?" Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Of course you can. With your strength, you can destroy the entire Azure world in the blink of an eye, much less this Qingzhou. However, Kuraki Academy is too arrogant. They dare to look down on you. This is intolerable." The mysterious woman said calmly, "Don't you know that experts only appear at the critical moment? The atmosphere is not good enough. If I appear now, it will be too embarrassing. Just wait. When the atmosphere is good enough, I will come out." Yi Xian was dumbfounded. He was completely dumbfounded. The atmosphere is not good enough? Appearance depends on the atmosphere? Is she serious? At that moment, the left dean suddenly said, "Yi Xian, 15 minutes are up. Since your master is not coming out, I will start with you." With that, he was about to make his move. At that moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Wait." The left dean gazed at Yi Xian, didn't say anything, and waited silently for Yi Xian to continue. Yi Xian took a deep breath, and then he walked over to the left dean and said, "I know that I have no chance of survival this time, so I have a small request before I die. I hope you can fulfill it. I've heard that the left dean of the Central Divine Prefecture is a peerless expert. Today, I, Yi Xian, would like to seek guidance from you." "Seek guidance?" Everyone here was stunned. Seek guidance from the left Dean? Has Yi Xian gone mad? Not to mention that Yi Xian was only at the Nether Passage realm. Even if he was at the Dharma realm, it would still be impossible for him to fight the left Dean. Because the left Dean's cultivation had clearly surpassed the Dharma control realm. After all, the main institute had once sent a Dharma control realm expert here. Unfortunately, that mysterious woman had killed him with a single swing of her sword. So, it was absolutely impossible for the Dharma control realm expert that Kuraki Academy's main institute had sent again. Yet now, Yi Xian had challenged the left Dean who he didn't know his limits. Has he gone mad? The left Dean glanced at Yi Xian and said, he wants to challenge me? Are you sure? Yi Xian nodded and said, yes. The left Dean nodded slightly and said, you, Yi Xian, are quite a figure amongst the younger generation. Fine, I'll fulfill your wish. As soon as he finished speaking, his aura suddenly dropped to the Dharma control realm in an instant. However, it didn't stop there and continued to drop. In next to no time, the left Dean's aura dropped to the Dharma control realm under the gazes of countless people. At this moment, he couldn't go any lower. The left Dean gazed at Yi Xian and said, the Dharma realm is my limit. Make your move. Yi Xian nodded, and then he charged at the left Dean with his sword in hand. As he charged, the spirit grace sword in his hand trembled violently, and the aura of his sword skyrocketed madly. Borrowing the aura. Not only did he possess his own sword aura, but he could also borrow the aura of the earth, the surrounding wind, and any other aura that he could borrow. In addition to that, with his own battle intent and sword intent, the aura of his sword could be said to have completely exceeded the scope of the divine combination realm. When he used the life and death sword, the aura of his sword once again reached a new height. Strictly speaking, the life and death sword was not just a sword technique, but more of a belief in the sword Tao. The moment the sword was unleashed, countless people in the field turned to look. Even the left Dean's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise and shock. This was because Yi Xian's sword had already reached the scope of the Dharma realm. And this sword could be said to be Yi Xian's strongest sword. He had really used all his strength in this sword. Facing an expert of the left Dean's level, he knew very well that he only had one chance to unleash his sword. Therefore, he had to give it his all. The sword stopped a dozen or so inches away from the left courtyard envoy's face because a palm had blocked the sword. The left Dean's palm blocked Yi Xian's sword. Yi Xian's spirit elegant sword could not move an inch further. At this moment, Yi Xian grasped the hilt of the sword with both hands and suddenly spun it. Bang! The left Dean retreated a dozen steps, but only a dozen steps. Just as Yi Xian was about to attack again, the left Dean's palm suddenly shook forward. Bang! Yi Xian was instantly sent flying. 100 feet away, a mountain wall shook violently and a black hole appeared in the mountain wall. This hole was more than a dozen feet deep, and at the bottom of the hole was Yi Xian. The left Dean looked down at his palm. His palm had split open and blood was flowing out. After a slight groan, the left Dean raised his head to look at Yi Xian who had already come out. He narrowed his eyes and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. You really have to die. In the distance, Yi Xian sat paralyzed on the ground. The spirit elegant sword in his hand was broken, and blood flowed continuously from the corner of his mouth. This time, not only was he seriously injured, but his sword was also destroyed. The destruction of his sword meant that he had no dantian. At this moment, he was even weaker than an ordinary martial artist. It was the first time in history that he had suffered such a serious injury. At this moment, he thought of many people. His sister, Shaoan, Mo Yunqi, Bai Zai, Ling Han, Yi Li, Jianghu. In the distance, the skinny old man behind the left Dean suddenly said, "Kill him, then go find his master." The left Dean nodded and was about to attack when a woman in a plain dress suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The woman in the plain dress had her hands behind her back. She looked down at Yi Xian, who sat paralyzed on the ground. Do you blame me? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't. The woman in the plain dress was about to speak, but at this moment, the left dean behind her suddenly said, "I thought you were going to be a coward and not come out." At this moment, the woman in the plain dress plucked out a strand of her hair. 10 feet away, the left dean's voice stopped abruptly because a strand of hair had already pierced through the space between his eyebrows. The woman in the plain dress turned to look at the left dean. "Did I allow you to speak?" Everyone. P.S. Last night, I dreamed that I earned tens of millions a year and went to Thailand and Singapore every day. Then, I updated every 3 days and lived a happy life. Chapter 201. The surroundings were deathly silent. The left courtyard emissary's eyes widened in disbelief. He was not dead, but his life force was disappearing at an extremely fast rate. Not only that, he could not move at all. What was pinned down was not his body, but his soul. At this moment, his life force and soul were disappearing at an extremely fast rate. At most a moment, he would no longer be in this world. Not only that, he would not even have the possibility of an afterlife. When people die, there is reincarnation and reincarnation. However, the prerequisite for all of this was that there must be a soul imprint. And this strand of hair was very likely to erase his soul imprint. Under normal circumstances, the soul imprint was protected by the reincarnation of heaven and earth. Under normal circumstances, a person's death was like an extinguished lamp, but the soul imprint could not be erased. Even he, or rather, out of all the people he knew, no one had the means to erase the soul imprint. But the woman in front of him was very likely to be able to do it. She was definitely not a sword immortal, or rather, not a simple sword immortal. At this moment, the left courtyard emissary was horrified. He knew that Kuraki College had seriously underestimated the strength of this mysterious woman. Not only the left courtyard emissary, but the skinny old man and the others were also stunned. She had pinned down the left courtyard emissary with a strand of hair. What kind of method was this? The skinny old man and the others stared at the mysterious woman as if they were facing a great enemy. They were extremely vigilant. The mysterious woman ignored the skinny old man and the others. Instead, she turned to look at Yi Xian. "How do you feel?" Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "How do I feel?" At this moment, he felt that he was completely crippled. The destruction of his sword meant that his dantian had been destroyed. He was now really an ordinary person, not even a warrior. Yi Xian looked up at the mysterious woman. He wanted to see what she looked like, but unfortunately, he could not see her at all. The mysterious woman was standing right in front of him, but he could not see her. The mysterious woman said indifferently, "Do you know why I asked you to come and get the sword?" Yi Xian thought for a moment and then said, "The sword is strong because the person is strong." The mysterious woman nodded slightly. "It's not bad that you can think of this. However, there is another reason why I asked you to come and get the sword. As for what it is, think about it yourself." Yi Xian bitterly smiled. "Senior, I'm already crippled." "Cripple?" The mysterious woman sneered. "What do you mean by trash? Without the dantian sword, are you no longer a swordsman?" After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked, "I can still be saved?" The mysterious woman said coldly, "No, you're hopeless. Just wait for death." Yi Xian was speechless. The mysterious woman did not speak to Yi Xian again. Instead, she turned around and walked towards the skinny old man and the others. Behind her, Yi Xian lowered his head slightly, deep in thought. At this moment, there was only one sentence in his mind. Without the dantian sword, was he not a swordsman anymore? Yi Xian fell into deep thought. As for the plain-dressed woman, she had already walked in front of the thin elder and company. The thin elder stared intently at the plain-dressed woman. "You are not a sword immortal." "Sword immortal?" The corners of the plain-dressed woman's mouth curled into a mocking smile. That was over 100,000 years ago. The thin elder looked at the plain-dressed woman. His right hand tightly gripped the crutch in his hand. His expression was incomparably calm, and there was not the slightest fluctuation in his eyes. However, his heart was already in turmoil. Over 100,000 years ago? Could anyone live that long? Could the legendary supreme existence live for so long? Who was this mysterious woman in front of him? In an instant, a series of question marks flashed through the thin elder's mind like a spark. Moreover, if this woman had already reached the level of a sword immortal more than 100,000 years ago, then what kind of existence was this woman now? Impossible. The thin elder's eyes narrowed slightly. A trace of malevolence flashed in his eyes. Are you trying to scare the old man? As his voice fell, he lightly tapped the ground with the crutch in his hand. Borrow the sky's eye. In an instant, the sky changed color. The entire sky instantly darkened. Dark clouds covered the sky above Kuraki Academy, and a pitch-black eye appeared amidst the dark clouds. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled around the eye. At the same time, a shapeless pressure pressed down from the sky. The pressure was so strong that it seemed like the sky was collapsing. Countless people below were horrified, and they fled in all directions. The thin elder grinned fiercely in front of the plain-dressed woman. Woman, have a look at the old man's ability. As soon as he finished speaking, he pointed the crutch in his hand up into the sky. The enormous eye in the sky suddenly looked down, and its gaze just happened to descend onto the plain-dressed woman. In the next moment, a pillar of lightning shot down from the eye, and the entire ground instantly trembled violently when it appeared in the sky. The ability of a god. Some people in the surroundings gazed at the pillar of lightning in astonishment. Such ability had far exceeded the scope of an ordinary person's ability. It was the ability of a god. Could that sword immortal resist it? Some people looked at the plain-dressed woman. The woman had her left hand behind her back while 2 fingers of her right hand held a strand of her beautiful hair, and then she slowly slid it down along her hair. When the pillar of lightning arrived over 30 m above her, she pressed her fingers together and pointed upwards. A strand of beautiful hair shot up into the sky. Under the gazes of countless people, the pillar of lightning suddenly began to be annihilated inch by inch. In practically less than half a breath's time, the pillar of lightning completely disappeared in the sky. However, the strand of beautiful hair did not stop, and it went straight into the sky. Boom! In the sky, the enormous eye suddenly exploded and was annihilated. The sky returned to normal. The surroundings were completely silent. The thin elder's face was pale, and he stared blankly at the sky as if he had lost his soul. How is this possible? How is this possible? A strand of hair had destroyed his great divine ability. At this moment, the thin elder's mind was completely blank. The 11 people behind him also had expressions of disbelief, especially the Left Academy emissary who was not far away and had yet to die. At this moment, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Because this was not something that a sword immortal could do. Not a sword immortal. Above a sword immortal? The Left Academy emissary's hands had already begun to tremble. The woman did not continue to attack. Instead, she turned around and walked before Yi Xian. She looked down at Yi Xian. Have you thought it through? Yi Xian raised his head to look at the woman. Can you give me a little more time? The woman nodded slightly. All right. With that, she turned around. At this moment, the thin elder suddenly said, You are not a sword immortal at all, you. At this moment, the thin elder's voice stopped abruptly because a strand of beautiful hair had pierced into his forehead. Just like the Left Academy emissary, the thin elder could not move at all. He could not fight back at all. The plainly dressed woman lightly tapped the skinny old man with her lily-white hand. Did I allow you to speak? The skinny old man looked at the woman in the plain dress in horror. At this moment, he was already extremely shocked. The woman before him was not a sword immortal at all. She might even be a supreme existence of legend. The thin elder's face was as white as a sheet when he thought of this. It's over. That was the only thought in his mind. The woman did not care about the thin elder. Instead, she looked at the 11 people not far away. When they saw this scene, they were horrified and were about to flee. At this moment, the woman's right thumb and index finger pressed together, and then she pulled them apart. A ray of sword light shot out from between her fingers. In the distance, the heads of the 11 people who had fled flew out one after another. In an instant, all 11 of them were dead. Not a single one was left. All of them were instantly killed. The woman turned to look at Yi Xian. Have you thought it through? Yi Xian nodded. The woman in the plain dress walked up to Yi Xian. Tell me. Yi Xian said, a swordsman cultivates a Tao, a philosophy, a belief, not some Xian energy. Therefore, even without a dantian, I am still a swordsman. The woman looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian said cautiously, am I wrong? The woman said calmly, you're not as stupid as I thought you were. Yi Xian was speechless. The lady in the plain dress waved her hand lightly, and the broken pieces of the spiritual beauty sword beside Yi Xian instantly flew into her hand. Looking at the pile of broken pieces, she wiped her hand lightly, and in an instant, the spiritual beauty sword returned to normal. She held the spirit elegant sword and patted Yi Xian's shoulder lightly. This is the last time I help you. After today, you will have to face everything in the future by yourself. It's time for you to learn how to grow. With that, she pointed with her finger and the spirit elegant sword sank into Yi Xian's body. The woman turned and walked before the left courtyard emissary. He was about to speak when the strand of hair between his brows suddenly pierced through. Pust. The left courtyard emissary began to disappear. The left courtyard emissary looked at the woman in fear. However, no matter what he did, it was useless. He could only feel himself disappearing from this world bit by bit. Not only the left courtyard emissary, but the scrawny old man beside him also began to disappear bit by bit. The scrawny old man did not struggle. He stared at the woman in the plain dress. How strong are you? Can you answer my question? The woman walked towards the scrawny old man. In your eyes, who is the strongest? The scrawny old man stared at the woman in the plain dress. The supreme realm. No one in the firmament world has ever reached it. The woman in the plain dress nodded slightly. To me, they are like ants. The scrawny old man was stunned. Even when he was completely annihilated, his eyes were still lifeless. The supreme realm was like an ant. At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in the air. The realm protector. The old man stared at the woman in the plain dress. Why did you come to Qingzhou, you? The woman in the plain dress pointed her finger upwards. Pust. A strand of hair pierced through the old man's brows. The old man's body stiffened in the air. In the air, the old man looked at the woman in the plain dress in shock. You dare to kill the realm protector, you. The woman in the plain dress glanced at the old man. Come, call for help. The old man did not hesitate and crushed a voice transmission talisman. Killing the realm protector. How many years had it been since anyone had dared to do this? Forget about this Qingzhou, even in the divine central continent, no one dared to do this. The woman in the plain dress ignored the old man and turned to look at her surroundings. After a moment, she shook her head. This world is annoying to look at. With that, she looked at Yi Xian. I'll teach you a sword technique that descends from the sky. With that, she pointed with her finger. In an instant, the spirit elegant sword in Yi Xian's body shot into the sky. The sword began to descend slowly. In an instant, the entire sky turned illusory. Not only that, but the ground began to crack inch by inch, and countless mountains collapsed. Chapter 202. Doomsday. When the exquisite sword slowly descended from the sky, everyone felt the aura of doomsday. If that sword was allowed to descend, then the entire Azure Prefecture might be destroyed. It wasn't just the Azure Prefecture, even the entire firmament world might be destroyed. She's going to destroy the world. At this moment, countless people were horrified. Especially the old man from the world protector in the sky. At this moment, his mind was completely blank. What sort of expert is capable of destroying a world with a single sword strike? Is she even human? Yi Xian was stupefied as well. Because he'd never imagined that the mysterious woman would actually want to destroy this world. She's going too far. Yi Xian hurriedly stood up and charged behind the mysterious woman. Senior, you must calm down. Calm down. He naturally didn't want this world to be destroyed. If this world was destroyed, then what would happen to the Jianghu Kingdom of Azure Prefecture? What would happen to Little Nine, Mo Yinchi, and the others? The woman remained expressionless. Calm down. The ants of this world have come looking for trouble with me time and time again and disturbed my sleep. They truly deserve death. She just finished speaking when the exquisite sword in the sky suddenly descended by 3 m. In an instant, the entire Kuraki Academy was instantly transformed into powder. Moreover, the mountains around Kuraki Academy started to collapse layer by layer at this moment. Yi Xian was greatly shocked when he sensed this scene, and he hurriedly said, Senior, aren't you looking for someone? If that person is in this world, then wouldn't that person be destroyed along with this world when this sword of yours collapses? The woman's beautiful brows knit together slightly when she heard this. After a short moment, she glanced at the surroundings. Actually, this glance had already covered the entire Azure Prefecture. After a while, her gaze finally descended onto Yi Xian. She just looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Even though Yi Xian couldn't see the woman's appearance, he was able to sense that she was looking at him. Yi Xian felt his scalp go numb from being stared at. He didn't dare to be mischievous when facing the woman as he didn't want to suffer a beating. It was truly too painful when the woman hit him. After a while, the woman in the plain dress slowly closed her eyes. In the air, the elegant spirit sword also stopped and did not descend any further. Everyone in the surroundings shivered, and they didn't even dare breathe loudly. Just like this, after about 15 minutes, the woman suddenly pointed at Yi Xian. I'll give you face. As soon as she finished speaking, she pointed her jade-like hand at Yi Xian. The elegant spirit sword directly entered Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. He sat down on the ground and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Even he found it hard to believe. I actually saved the world. At this moment, the space and the sky suddenly trembled. Under the gazes of countless people, a crack suddenly appeared in the sky. Soon after, a middle-aged man walked out from within. The middle-aged man looked down below, and his gaze first landed on the old man in the sky who was being stared at by a strand of the mysterious woman's hair. The middle-aged man frowned when he saw the old man. Then, his gaze fell on the mysterious woman. The old man suddenly roared, "Hurry up and leave." He didn't know what realm the mysterious woman was at, but he knew that the mysterious woman before him wasn't someone that he and the middle-aged man could fight against. The middle-aged man was about to speak, but at this moment, the mysterious woman suddenly pinched a strand of hair with 2 fingers. In the next moment, a ray of sword light shot into the sky. Within the ray of sword light was a strand of hair. In the sky, the middle-aged man's expression changed abruptly. He placed his hands together and pressed them down. In an instant, the entire sky shook violently, and the space distorted into a strange vortex. However, the strand of hair directly pierced through the strange vortex, or rather, the strand of hair and the distorted space vortex didn't belong to the same space at all. Pust. Under the middle-aged man's terrified gaze, the strand of hair directly pierced through the space between his eyebrows. The entire sky instantly returned to normal. The woman suddenly appeared in front of the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man stared at the woman in the plain dress. We are the world protectors. We honor the Tendo and the gods. We guard the 9 continents and the 10 worlds and protect billions of living beings. If you kill the 2 of us, you will be punished by the heavens. The 9 continents and the 10 worlds will not tolerate it. Punished by the heavens? A wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of the woman's mouth, and she looked at the middle-aged man as if she was looking at an ant. Who in the world dares to order me around? If it isn't for the person I'm looking for in this world, then what Tendo? The gods? The 9 continents and the 10 worlds? The billions of living beings? I'll annihilate them all with a single strike of my sword. Arrogant. The middle-aged man stared fixedly at the woman in the plain dress, and he roared furiously like a wild beast. You lack reverence towards the Tendo and the gods. In the future, you will surely suffer. The middle-aged man's voice stopped abruptly because his head had already flown into the air. The woman in the plain dress was expressionless as she looked at the bloody head. Ignorant ant. Even if it's the Tendo and the gods that you speak of, they still have to maintain reverence towards me. Otherwise, if I want them to die, then they must die. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned her head slightly to look at the old man that was on the verge of death. Come, call for more people. Continue calling for more people. Don't call for trash like you. You're wasting my sword chi. Call the Tendo and the gods that he spoke of earlier. Let's see if they can withstand a single strike of my sword. The old man looked at the mysterious woman without saying a word, and he didn't continue calling for more people. Because if he did, he would undoubtedly be calling them to their deaths. Just like that, the old man slowly faded away, and after a short while, he completely disappeared from this world. The mysterious woman raised her head to look at the horizon. She had her hands behind her back, and her expression was cold and her eyes were indifferent. Not far behind the mysterious woman was Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian was slightly cautious because he realized that this sword immortal sister didn't seem like a good person. She seemed to want to destroy a world at the slightest provocation. Her temper was truly too violent. At this moment, the mysterious woman slowly closed her eyes. After a long time, she spoke softly. 13,000 years, 21 people, but none of them were you. Now, I don't know if it's you either. However, even if the chance is 1 in 10,000, I won't give up. Senior? Yi Xian walked behind the mysterious woman, and just as he was about to speak, the mysterious woman suddenly said, Your sword intent is the good and evil sword intent. With this sword intent, one good thought can cross thousands of rivers and mountains, and receive the help of heaven, earth, and man. One evil thought can change the world, and destroy all living beings. The path of good thought is incomparably complicated and difficult to understand. Good people can do evil, and evil people can do good. No matter how good or evil is defined, it's all based on the heart. After carefully pondering the mysterious woman's words, Yi Xian bowed slightly. I understand. The mysterious woman slowly walked in front of Yi Xian. Both of them were very close, but Yi Xian still couldn't see the mysterious woman's appearance. The mysterious woman said again, After today, you'll have to face everything in the future by yourself. A swordsman's path is walked by oneself, not paved by others. Yi Xian bowed deeply, I'll remember Senior's words. The mysterious woman nodded slightly, After you recover, you'll have to find the second Dao law as soon as possible. There are 9 Dao laws in that broken tower, and 6 of them are in this firmament world. You'll have to collect these 6 Dao laws as soon as possible and reach the Dharma realm. Not only that, you'll also have to reach the Sword Emperor realm. Only then will you have the ability to protect yourself when this world faces a great disaster in the future. A great disaster in this world? Yi Xian was a little confused. The mysterious woman nodded slightly. When I looked at the starry sky earlier, there was an extremely evil aura outside this world. This aura is watching over this world, and it's constantly devouring the origin of this world. However, it's doing it very secretly, so the people of this world haven't discovered it. According to my speculation, it'll be able to break through with the help of this world's origin soon. When that time comes, this world will face a great disaster. Yi Xian's expression changed slightly. Is it very strong? The mysterious woman looked up and said calmly, To the people of this world, it's undoubtedly very strong. Yi Xian asked hurriedly, What about you, Senior? Like an ant. The mysterious woman's voice was extremely calm. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, Senior, then annihilate it with a single strike of your sword. The mysterious woman glanced at Yi Xian. I'm already being very merciful by not annihilating this world. Save the world? So long as it doesn't offend me, then what does the life and death of the myriad of living beings in this world have to do with me? Yi Xian was speechless. The mysterious woman asked abruptly, "Do you want to save the world?" Yi Xian shook his head. Save the world? Actually, he wasn't that great, and he just wanted to protect the people by his side. As for saving the world, he'd never thought about it. The mysterious woman walked over to Yi Xian. Do things according to your ability. It's very important to know yourself clearly. If you're unable to find the second Tao law within a year, then you'll become a passerby in this pagoda. As soon as she finished speaking, she vanished directly. She's returned to the pagoda. Yi Xian shook his head and sighed. Where should I go to find the second Tao law? He had no clue at all. And that god on the second floor, he had no idea where that god had gone to wander off to. It was fine to wander around, but he had to bring the Tao law back. Tao law. At the thought of this, Yi Xian's expression suddenly changed drastically. The next moment, he let out a shrill cry and fell straight to the ground, curling up into a ball in pain. Backlash. It's coming. It's coming again. This time, without the suppression of the Tao law, he suffered all the backlash alone. That feeling was truly excruciating. He, Yi Xian, was not afraid of death, but he was truly afraid of this backlash. At that moment, Tuoba Little Demon walked over and looked at Yi Xian on the ground. Tuoba Little Demon frowned, and there was a trace of worry in her eyes. Swordsman, are you all right? Yi Xian did not answer. At that moment, he was already unable to answer, and his consciousness was somewhat fuzzy. Tuoba Little Demon took out her hammer, and she was somewhat hesitant. Swordsman, why don't I knock you out? It won't hurt if I knock you out. But, I'm afraid I'll beat you to death. Yi Xian, while Tuoba Little Demon was still hesitating, a woman suddenly appeared beside Yi Xian. The person who had come was Lian Wanli. Lian Wanli glanced at Yi Xian on the ground, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Her smile was somewhat strange. Tuoba Little Demon looked at Lian Wanli. What's the matter? Lian Wanli pointed at Yi Xian on the ground. I can save him. Tuoba Little Demon blinked, and she was somewhat delighted. Really? Lian Wanli nodded and said very seriously, really? Just like that, Tuoba Little Demon and Lian Wanli each dragged one of Yi Xian's legs as they walked into the distance. As for Yi Xian, because he had been sent flying by the left academy custodian, his clothes were already torn, especially between his legs. There was nothing there, and something was exposed to the air without reservation. Along the way, Tuoba Little Demon pointed at Yi Xian's crotch and asked curiously, "What's that? Why don't I have it?" Lian Wanli glanced at Yi Xian's crotch with a look of disdain. That's the root of evil. Without it, a man can't do evil to us women. Tuoba Little Demon thought for a moment, and then said, "This swordsman is a good person, and he's a friend of mine. How about this, we help him get rid of this evil?" Lian Wanli nodded. All right. Tuoba Little Demon turned to look at the half-conscious Yi Xian. Swordsman, bear with it. With that, she held the hammer and smashed it down on Yi Xian's crotch. Bam! Something seemed to shatter. P.S. Recently, some people have come to scold me, saying that my writing is rubbish and that my writing is not good. And I've reflected on it, and I feel that what they said is not unreasonable. But it's all right, I'm still young, I'm only 18 years old, and I still have a lot of room for improvement. What do you guys think? Chapter 203. In his daze, Yi Xian felt a sharp pain coming from his lower body as if something had broken. However, he couldn't care less because his consciousness was getting more and more blurry. Just like that, little Tuoba and Lian Wanli each dragged one of his legs as they walked towards the distance. On the way, little Tuoba was obviously someone who couldn't stay still. She turned around and glanced at a certain part of Yi Xian. Big Sister Lian, do you think he will thank us if I help him get rid of the source of his evil? Lian Wanli blinked and seemed rather mischievous. Maybe not. Why? Little Tuoba was puzzled. I'm helping him. Lian Wanli thought for a moment and said, Little demon, although that thing is the source of a man's evil, it is also the source of his happiness. When you get rid of his evil, you also get rid of his future happiness. So, he might not thank you. Little Tuoba puckered her lips. What source of happiness? Aren't I very happy without that ugly thing? Lian Wanli thought for a moment and seemed to be deep in thought. Actually, what you said does make sense. Little Tuoba was extremely happy to be acknowledged. Big Sister Lian, why don't we get rid of the source of all the evil of all the men in the world? Lian Wanli thought for a moment and said seriously, that's a good idea, but it's rather difficult to implement. We have to think about it at length. Little Tuoba nodded. She seemed to have thought of something and her expression suddenly became slightly solemn. Big Sister Lian, did you see that big sister in a plain dress just now? Lian Wanli nodded and her expression gradually became solemn. Little Tuoba's eyes were filled with a trace of admiration and respect. That big sister is so powerful. My father might not be able to defeat her, and my uncle might not be able to defeat her either. Perhaps I can give it a try. Lian Wanli was slightly dumbfounded. At this moment, Little Tuoba said again, my father said that it doesn't matter if you can't defeat her, but you can't embarrass yourself. So, even if I can't defeat her, I have to say that I can defeat her. In any case, I'm not fighting her, so who knows if I can defeat her or not. Lian Wanli thought for a moment and said softly, that does make sense. Just like that, the two women dragged Yi Xian and slowly disappeared into the distance. Now, Kuraki Academy was in ruins. Kuraki Academy had been destroyed, and more than a dozen peak powerhouses had been killed. Even the two world protectors had fallen. However, the matter was not over yet. This was because the spirit qi in the Azure province was disappearing at an extremely fast speed. Not only the Azure province, but the Azure world was also affected to a certain extent. The Azure province was the most severely affected, because the Azure province's source qi had been heavily damaged. Although the sword of the plain-dressed woman had yet to completely descend, the might of that sword was not something that the Azure province could endure. Spiritual energy was the foundation of a world, and every world had its own source. The world protector's job was to protect the world origin, preventing it from being destroyed by the local powerhouses. Yet now, the Azure province's quintessence had suffered a heavy injury. This meant that it wouldn't be long before the Azure province would become a wasteland. To the entire Azure province, this was truly the end of the world. Or rather, it would be a disaster for the entire Azure world. In the sky above the ruins of Kuraki Academy, a middle-aged man suddenly walked out of space. The middle-aged man swept his gaze over his surroundings, and after a moment, he frowned deeply. His eyes were solemn. An old man suddenly appeared not too far away from the middle-aged man. The old man glanced at the middle-aged man and said, I never thought that Supremacy Lu would personally come to Azure province. Supremacy Lu was the world protector of the Azure world. In the entire Central Divine Prefecture, his strength was at least in the top 5. Of course, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was his identity. As the world protector, all the world protectors of the Azure world were under his command. The world protectors were transcendent existences in the Azure world, and the world protector supremacy was even more transcendent. In the Central Divine Prefecture, there were only a few exceptions. This chapter is not over. Please continue to the next page. Apart from special factions and special people, no one dared to disrespect the world protectors. To put it simply, the world protectors were equivalent to the government of the people. Supremacy Lu looked at the old man. Dean Li, your Kuraki Academy paid a great price to invite 12 warlocks from the sorcerer world, but this is the result. What do you think? The old man was expressionless. I admit defeat. Admit defeat? Supremacy Lu said indifferently, this time, Swordsman's sword has severely damaged the Azure world's origin, especially this Azure province. The spirit qi in this province is rapidly dissipating, and it won't be long before it's completely exhausted. In the end, this all happened because of your Karaki Academy. Don't you have any other thoughts? Li Qing chuckled. Supremacy Lu, are you trying to make my Karaki Academy a scapegoat? Supremacy Lu was expressionless. Dean Li, it's not like you don't know the rules of the Azure world. In this tiny Azure province, Dharma realm powerhouses can attack, but they cannot destroy the spirit chi and origin of the province. But your Karaki Academy invited 12 warlocks above the Dharma controlling realm into Azure province. This is a serious violation of the rules. Li Qing narrowed her eyes. Supremacy Lu, your realm protector didn't stop the 12 warlocks from entering the Azure province. Supremacy Lu sneered, my realm protector didn't stop them. Does this mean that your Karaki Academy can violate the rules at will? Li Qing's eyes gradually turned cold. Supremacy Lu, you seem to have forgotten one thing. The 12 warlocks and the left court emissary of Karaki Academy died. The one who destroyed the spiritual energy origin of this world is that woman swordsman. That woman is the culprit. Supremacy Lu glanced at Li Qing. Dean Li, you don't need to worry about that woman. The Realm Protector Alliance will deal with her. Your Karaki Academy violated the rules and should be punished. Dean Li, you have 3 days to pay 20 billion gold coins and 10,000 purple source crystals to the Realm Protector Alliance. If you fail to pay within the time limit, you will bear the consequences. With that, without waiting for Li Qing to answer, he turned around and disappeared into the boundless horizon. In his place, Li Qing clenched his fists, his expression extremely unsightly, and his eyes filled with frigid killing intent and anger. The Realm Protector Alliance clearly wants to rob Karaki Academy when it is at its weakest. 20 billion gold coins and 10,000 purple source crystals. This wealth is enough to greatly damage Karaki Academy's vitality. It is truly a great blow to its vitality. It may take decades for Karaki Academy to recover its vitality. Because the competition in the Central Divine region is very cruel. If Karaki Academy suffers a heavy blow, it will no longer be able to compete with others for resources. Without resources, Karaki Academy will either perish or withdraw from the Central Divine region. He is naturally unwilling to withdraw from the Central Divine region. Karaki Academy was able to gain a foothold in the Central Divine region thanks to the unremitting efforts of countless people. If it withdraws from the Central Divine region, he will be a sinner of Karaki Academy. Moreover, the hostile forces of Karaki Academy will not let go of this opportunity to suppress Karaki Academy. Not only those hostile forces, but some other forces may also come to add insult to injury and even join forces to divide up Karaki Academy. Karaki Academy's current situation is equivalent to a hopeless situation. Just then, a black-robed old man suddenly appeared not far from Li Qing. This person is the black-robed old man who followed Enlancio back then. However, this person is not from the In family. When she saw the old man in black, Li Qing's expression instantly turned icy cold. It was the old man in black who had introduced the 12 warlocks to Karaki College. It was also the person in front of her who had solemnly vowed that the 12 of them could kill a sword immortal. But the fact is that the 12 warlocks in Karaki Academy's left court emissary have all been killed. Karaki Academy has paid a great price to invite the 12 warlocks. Coupled with the extortion from the Realm Protector Alliance, Karaki Academy has been forced into a desperate situation. The black-robed old man glanced down and said indifferently, "It seems that we have failed again." Li Qing sneered, "Didn't your excellency say that the 12 warlocks can definitely kill a sword immortal?" The black-robed old man's eyes narrowed slightly, a trace of darkness in them. It is the old man's estimation that was wrong. That woman can kill a sword immortal? This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. To kill 12 warlocks, she should be at least a pinnacle great sword immortal. Pinnacle great sword immortal. Without saying anything, Li Qing turned and left. For Karaki Academy, whether it is a sword immortal or a great sword immortal, it is meaningless, because Karaki Academy can't win. At this time, the black-robed old man suddenly appeared in front of Li Qing. "Dean Li, Kuraki Academy is in a worrying situation now. What are your plans? Li Qing's expression was cold. What plans? What can my Kuraki Academy do now? The black-robed old man said, Dean Li, don't be angry, the old man has no malice. Kuraki Academy is in a worrying situation now. According to the old man, Kuraki Academy has many enemies, and I'm afraid that there are already many forces eyeing Kuraki Academy. If Dean Li has no other plans for the time being, the old man can point out a path for Dean Li. Li Qing looked straight at the black-robed old man and didn't speak. The black-robed old man said sternly, Dean Li, to tell you the truth, the old man is an elder of the Situ family from the upper realm. The upper realm. Li Qing frowned, you are from the upper realm. The black-robed old man nodded. Li Qing was silent. The so-called upper realm was actually also the Azure world. The Azure world was very big and contained many things. It was a diverse world. The so-called upper realm was a special existence. In other words, it was a world that was established independently. It belonged to the Azure world, but it was also an independent world. Opening up a world independently was something only a true transcendent force could do. And this upper realm was not created by a single person or force, but by many forces working together to create it. In this independent upper realm, there were some transcendent forces, and the Situ family was one of them. The black-robed old man said again, Dean Li, why don't Kuraki Academy attach to my Situ family? With my Situ family, no one in the lower realm would dare bully your Kuraki Academy. Lower realm. The Azure world was actually a world, but to the people of the upper world, the worlds of the people outside were all lower worlds. Although it was a little high and mighty, the forces in the upper world were indeed stronger than the forces in the lower world. Li Qing was silent for a moment. This matter is very important, the old man must discuss it with the elders of the academy. The black-robed old man smiled, I understand. As if thinking of something, Li Qing suddenly looked at the black-robed old man. Your Situ family also seems to want the Yi Xian dead. Why? The black-robed old man sneered, Brother Li may not know, but in the upper realm, many forces want to form a marriage alliance with the Yin family. My Situ family is the same. Moreover, the Yin family's patriarch also wants to form a marriage alliance with my Situ family. That Yi Xian doesn't know what's good for him and actually dares to approach Miss Humph, let alone the fact that he has a great sword immortal backing him, even if he has a person above sword immortal, our Situ clan will definitely not spare him. Li Qing glanced at the black-robed old man, you still want to target him? The black-robed old man nodded, of course, the higher-ups have already ordered that this person must die. Miss Humph can only be my Situ family's daughter-in-law. Li Qing nodded slightly. I wish the Situ family good luck. With that, he turned and left. At the end of the distant horizon, Li Qing suddenly stopped, his expression fierce, fool. Rather than relying on your Situ family, I might as well rely on the Yin family. Speaking of this, he was slightly stunned, and after a moment, he said softly, Yi Xian and that Miss N, rely on the Yin family, so be it. With that, he directly disappeared on the spot. In the sky above Kuraki Academy, after Li Qing left, the black-robed old man looked down coldly, Great Sword Immortal? Woman, when you see my Situ family, you will realize how insignificant you are. Below, Great Cloud Empire's Imperial Palace. Yi Xian suddenly woke up, and the next moment, a heart-wrenching scream sounded from the depths of the Imperial Palace, my eggs. Where are my eggs? End of this chapter. Chapter 204. On the bed, Yi Xian lay quietly with a lifeless look on his face. Not far away, little Tuoba held her head and drew circles with her index fingers. After a long silence, little Tuoba slowly walked to the side of the bed and kicked it lightly. She whispered, It's just 2 eggs. Why are you so angry? I'll compensate you. Yi Xian was so angry that he almost vomited blood. It's just 2 eggs? Oh my God. Are these normal eggs? Are these normal eggs? Little Tuoba pursed her lips. It's just 2 human eggs. I'll compensate you with 2 tiger eggs. Yi Xian was speechless. In the end, Yi Xian did not argue with little Tuoba anymore because he realized that this girl did not know the crux of the matter at all. To her, it was just 2 broken eggs. That was all. At this moment, Lian Wanli suddenly walked in. She was wearing a light muslin dress. The dress was very long and dragged on the ground. At the back of the dress, there was a black phoenix. The phoenix raised its wings, wanting to soar into the sky. Her beautiful hair was spread out behind her head, and the end of her beautiful hair was gently tied up by a purple ribbon. As she walked, that small tuft of hair gently fluttered in the wind, looking very elegant. Lian Wanli walked to the side of the bed and bent down to look at Yi Xian. She smiled. Don't be angry. I have the best imperial physician in the palace. I've asked and it's not a big deal. I'll ask the imperial physician to treat you later. However, I'm afraid the fee will not be cheap. It'll cost at least 2 million supreme-grade spiritual stones. 2 million supreme-grade spiritual stones. Yi Xian's expression froze. Lian Wanli blinked. The imperial physician said that it's not too late to save you now. If it's too late, I'm afraid. Save me. Yi Xian did not hesitate. I'll save you now. The world was big, but the eggs were the biggest. Lian Wanli stretched out her hand and said with a smile, pay up first. Yi Xian was speechless. In the end, Yi Xian reluctantly handed over 2 million best-grade spirit stones. He knew that he had been cheated. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Who asked him to be in someone else's hands? It's all because of that crazy girl, Tuoba. At this moment, he wished for nothing more than to rush up and give this crazy little girl a beating. However, when he thought of this crazy little girl's strength and his current condition, he forcefully endured it. After receiving the 2 million top-grade spirit stones from Yi Xian, Lian Wanli stretched out her lily-white hand again. I need another 1 million top-grade spirit stones. Yi Xian instantly went berserk. You still need 1 million? Woman, are you a bandit? Even if you're a bandit, can't you have some professional ethics? Lian Wanli patted Yi Xian's shoulder lightly. Don't get excited. I never take advantage of others when they are in a precarious situation. The previous 2 million were used to buy the medicine you needed. Now, this 1 million is for my imperial physician. My imperial physician is the best medical expert in the Qingzhou region. Every time he performs a treatment, it will cost at least 1 million top-grade spirit stones. Of course. At this point, she paused and then said, if you're not willing, we won't force you. I will return you 1,500,000 top-grade spirit stones. Yi Xian was shocked. Why 1,500,000? Isn't it 2 million? Lian Wanli said seriously, penalty fee. Do you understand? Yi Xian was speechless. Lian Wanli sat aside and took a bite of a fruit. Then she said, don't be angry. The imperial physician said that anger is not good for you, especially for your lower body. If you're not careful, you might be impotent for the rest of your life. Impotent? Not far away, Tuoba asked curiously, Sister Lian, impotent? This chapter is not over. Please continue. What does that mean? Lian Wanli thought for a while and then said, it should mean that it's not hard. Tuoba blinked. Will that part of him be hard? Lian Wanli nodded. Under normal circumstances, it will be. But now, it's been broken by you. I don't think it will be hard anymore. Oh, Tuoba looked at Yi Xian's lower body curiously. So it could be hard there. On the bed, Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. These 2 women were seriously discussing whether he was hard or not in front of him. What was wrong with this world? Lian Wanli suddenly leaned in front of Yi Xian and said with a smile, State Scholar Yi, do you want treatment or not? If not, I'm leaving. No treatment. The one who spoke was not Yi Xian but Tuoba. She glanced at Yi Xian's lower body and snorted coldly. Swordsman, that thing is quite ugly. Don't take it. Yi Xian was speechless. 15 minutes later, Yi Xian finally chose to compromise. This was related to his future sexual happiness, so he had to compromise. Lian Wanli beamed from ear to ear when he had received another 1 million best-grade spirit stones from Yi Xian. Someone, summon my royal physician. Soon, a woman walked into the hall. The woman was wearing a white palace dress with a purple belt around her waist. Her waist was slender and slender. There was no makeup on her exquisite face. Her fine black hair was tied with 2 white ribbons. The rest of her hair fell down and danced in the wind. There was not a trace of emotion in her eyes, only coldness, giving off a feeling of distance that kept people at a distance of 1,000 miles. The woman walked in front of Lian Wanli. Lian Wanli smiled. Ah Lang, I'll leave this patient to you. The woman called Ah Lang nodded slightly. Then she walked in front of Yi Xian. She dragged Yi Xian to the edge of the bed and squatted between Yi Xian's legs. Yi Xian sensed that it was a woman. He hurriedly said, a woman? Lian Wanli smiled. My imperial physician is naturally a woman. Why, do you have a problem? Yi Xian was about to speak. Just then, Ah Lang took out 2 silver needles and pierced them into his thighs. In an instant, he lost all feeling in his legs. Yi Xian was shocked. What are you doing? Before he could finish, he felt a pair of hands grabbing his lower body. It was warm and slightly itchy. Ah Lang raised her head and looked at Yi Xian. She was expressionless. I'm just grabbing your legs. Why are you moving around? Furthermore, your essence energy is out. You're no longer a virgin. What are you being shy about? Yi Xian, little demon Tuoba walked to Ah Lang's side. He asked curiously. Essence energy is out. You're no longer a virgin. What does that mean? Yi Xian, Ah Lang looked at little demon Tuoba. You don't know? Little demon Tuoba nodded. I don't know. My father said that if any man dares to take off his clothes in front of me, I will beat him to death. Ah Lang pointed at Yi Xian on the bed. Why didn't you beat him to death? Little demon Tuoba blinked his eyes. He took off his pants. Not his clothes. Yi Xian was completely speechless. Lian Wanli was also dumbstruck. This king has truly widened his horizons today. Ah Lang looked at little demon Tuoba for a long time. Finally, she asked seriously. Do you know the difference between a man and a woman? Little demon Tuoba immediately replied. Of course I do. What's the difference? Ah Lang asked again. The difference? This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. Where? Little demon Tuoba blinked his eyes. He stuttered. This. I definitely know what the difference is. Even if I don't say it, you know it, right? Ah Lang shook her head. She grabbed onto one of them. Do you know what this is called? Yi Xian, little demon Tuoba looked at the thing in Ah Lang's hand. He then looked at Lian Wanli. Lian Wanli had a face of confidence. This king knows the stars, sun and moon. I know the geography of the mountains and rivers. How can I not know this? According to the ancient books, this thing is called root. It can be hard or soft. It can be big or small. What's its use? Ah Lang suddenly asked. Lian Wanli blinked his eyes. Use? Saying that, she looked at little demon Tuoba. Little demon Tuoba immediately retracted his doubtful gaze. He said with a serious face. Use? I think it should be. Saying that, she suddenly looked at Ah Lang. Anyway, you know. Everyone, Ah Lang still wanted to say something. Just then, Yi Xian suddenly said. Big sister, I beg you. Can we treat him first? These three women were simply too strong. Ah Leng looked at Yi Xian coldly. Don't worry. With me here, this thing of yours won't be broken. With that, she opened a box beside her. She took out 2 eggs that were emitting a faint red glow. The 2 eggs were not big. They were about half the size of an egg. The surface of the eggs was emitting a red glow that was slightly hot. Ah Leng looked at the 2 eggs in her hands. She then looked at Yi Xian. This is the egg of a spirit dragon of the spirit demon king level. It contains extremely strong energy. But don't worry. I have already checked your body. Your body is very strong. You can take it. Yi Xian nodded. Come. Right now, he did not want to think about anything else. He just wanted to quickly return to normal. He did not want to become a eunuch. Ah Leng nodded her head. She then took out an exquisite small knife. Very quickly, she started waving it. At the side, little demon Tuoba and Lian Wanli curiously surrounded her. The 2 women just stared at her. As for Yi Xian, he did not feel much. He only felt that his lower body was cold. Sometimes it was warm. After a while, it was itchy. It was very strange. Half an hour later, Lian Wanli walked out of the main hall. Outside the main hall, a woman with a sword and armor came in front of her. She bowed slightly. My Majesty, all over the Qing province, the spiritual energy has dried up. Especially in my great cloud realm. In many places, the spiritual energy has completely disappeared. Without spiritual energy, to a martial artist, it is like a fish out of water. It is difficult for them to survive. Right now, there is already chaos everywhere. The price of top-grade spirit stones and all kinds of energy are also skyrocketing. Speaking of this, she paused slightly. She then continued, right now, the spiritual energy is quickly dissipating. At this rate, the entire Qing province will be in chaos. What should we do, My Majesty? Please make a decision as soon as possible. Lian Wanli was silent for a long time. After a quarter of an hour, she raised her head and looked at the sky. Right now, there are only 2 paths. These 2 paths must be taken at the same time. The first is to find a spirit vein to solve the urgent problem. The second is to find a cure to save the entire Qing province. Speaking of this, her expression gradually became solemn. That sword hurt the foundation of the Azure world. Not only my Qing province, but the entire Azure world will be in chaos. Once the world is in chaos, humanity will be lost. Countless ugly sides will appear one by one. Never mind, let it be chaos. This Majesty's Azure Dragon Knife has long been thirsty. Armored Woman. P.S. Seeking monthly votes. Seeking support. No monthly votes? No problem. You can leave a message to praise me. For example, praise my handsomeness. End of this chapter. Chapter 205. Inside the palace, Yi Xian laid there quietly. Ah Leng was fiddling around below him, while little demon Tuoba was staring at him, her eyes filled with curiosity. Ah Leng suddenly looked at little demon Tuoba, who hurriedly stood up straight with a serious expression, as if she had seen this scene countless of times, and was not surprised at all. Ah Leng pointed at Yi Xian's lower body. This is a man's weakest spot. If you fight with someone in the future, you can focus on this spot. With one hammer strike, the enemy will definitely lose the ability to fight. Yi Xian, little demon Tuoba nodded thoughtfully, looking at her expression. It was obvious that she would definitely try it in the future. Just like that, Ah Leng fiddled around for about another hour, before she dusted her hands and walked to the side to wash her hands. This time, she washed for a whole hour, and as she washed, she kept muttering to herself. No one knew what she was muttering. Little demon Tuoba sat beside Yi Xian's bed, curiously staring at something on Yi Xian's lower body. Yi Xian was speechless, and immediately took out a set of clothes and put them on again. Little demon Tuoba glared at Yi Xian, stingy. Yi Xian shook his head speechlessly. He already did not want to talk to little demon Tuoba anymore. This lass, she was too careless. At the side, Leng suddenly walked over. She looked coldly at Yi Xian. 2 hours later, you should be able to regain feeling in that part of your body. And there might be some side effects, be careful. Saying that, she turned and left. Side effects? Yi Xian hurriedly sat up. What side effects? Hey, don't go. Speak clearly. Leng did not turn back, and quickly disappeared out of the palace. Yi Xian's face darkened. Side effects? What side effects would there be? He was naturally worried. After all, that was his lifeline. What imperial doctor? He was a little unreliable. At this moment, little monster Tuoba suddenly sat down in front of Yi Xian and waved the storage ring in her hand with a grin. Swordsman, do you know what's inside? Yi Xian shook his head. What is it? Little demon Tuoba immediately became excited. That's a total of 3 billion gold coins. And supreme-grade spirit stones, that's a total of 26 million. 6 million. Speaking of this, she blinked her eyes, and the corner of her mouth lifted slightly. Also, 1,300 jade-grade spirit stones. Other than that. As she spoke, she secretly glanced at the surroundings and then leaned over to Yi Xian's ear. There's still a supreme-grade spiritual vein, which I've already secretly hidden in my Qingquan bag. I don't even dare to tell anyone. Top-grade spirit vein. Yi Xian's expression became solemn when he heard this. In the Azure province, the most common things were gold or veins, and gold coins were considered as commodities in circulation in the Azure province. And the most standard was actually the spirit vein, because a place with a spirit vein meant that there was an abundance of spirit qi, and it was suitable for cultivation. Moreover, the spirit vein was hidden underground, and it could also produce spirit stones, which was an endless source of wealth. Spirit veins were divided into low grade, high grade, supreme grade, jade grade, earth grade, and heaven grade. Rumor had it that heaven grade spiritual veins possessed their own consciousness and could take form, and such spiritual veins were extremely rare even in the divine central continent. In the Azure province, the most precious spiritual vein that had ever appeared was a jade-grade spiritual vein. In the entire kingdom of Jianghu, one had once appeared in Two World Mountain, but it had been taken away. Spiritual veins were something that sects and powers fought for. And a spiritual vein? This chapter is not over. Please continue to the next page. Top-grade spiritual veins could be said to be extremely precious in the Azure province. Yi Xian pondered deeply for a short moment before he said, "Little demon, this spiritual vein is very important to me. How about this? I'll take it, and you can choose whatever you want from the rest." Tuoba shook his head. "If it's important to you, then I'll give it to you. We'll share the rest equally. In any case, I have many of them at home, and I don't lack them. Moreover, I wouldn't have been able to obtain so many things if it wasn't for you." As soon as she finished speaking, she gave half of what she'd obtained from Kuraki Academy to Yi Xian. By then, Yi Xian had 2 billion gold coins, 13 million top-grade spirit stones, 2 volumes of martial techniques on the heaven level, 1 volume of cultivation method on the heaven level, 8 volumes of martial techniques on the earth level, and 2 spiritual weapons on the true level. Unfortunately, the 2 spiritual weapons on the true level were not swords, but a spear and a knife. Besides that, there were 6 bright rank spirit artifacts and 50 top-grade spirit artifacts. There were also 20 sets of black flame cavalry equipment. A sudden windfall. To him, he was undoubtedly a windfall, and these things were sufficient for him to advance to the Dharma imperial realm. Tuoba was overjoyed as well. Even though she didn't lack money, these things were really expensive, and it wasn't easy for her family to take out so many things at once. Now that she'd obtained such a huge amount of wealth, she would definitely be able to use it as a divine weapon when she returned. because the reason she'd come out was because her father often said that she was a wastrel. Now, she didn't have to ask for money from her family before she reached the Dharma imperial realm. A sense of accomplishment. To Tuoba, this feeling of accomplishment was something she enjoyed very much. After he sent Tuoba away, he started to inspect his own condition. Earlier, he'd been heavily injured by the left academy emissary, and his spirit grace sword had been broken. At that moment, he was actually equivalent to an ordinary person. However, under the circumstances where he didn't have any cultivation, he understood something. A swordsman. Without a sword, is he no longer a swordsman? This was what the mysterious lady had asked him, and he'd previously answered her. However, he knew that he only understood the surface of this sentence. This sentence wasn't simple, and there were some things contained within that he might not be able to understand at the moment. This was because the mysterious lady's power could no longer be described with words, and she, who didn't even have a sword, was still so powerful. His current understanding was that talent was the foundation. If the person was strong, the sword would be strong. Even a strand of hair could be made into a peerless sword. If the person was weak, the person wouldn't be able to subdue the best sword in the world, much less use it. No matter which path of cultivation one took, it was all about cultivating one's heart. Know one's heart, follow it, and subdue it. Of course, this was easy to say, but it was extremely difficult to actually do it. On the bed, Yi Xian shook his head and sighed. At this moment, he realized that the path of swordsman Dao Yi was much more complicated and difficult than he'd imagined. What he could do now was not to think about the future path, but to take every step properly. This was the most important thing. At this moment, Lian Wanli suddenly walked in. She glanced at Yi Xian, who was lying on the bed, and smiled. "State Scholar Yi, are you feeling better?" Yi Xian sat up and lightly patted his slightly numb feet. "Miss Lian, if there's anything, just get straight to the point." Lian Wanli took light steps and arrived in front of a soft chair opposite Yi Xian. After sitting down, she folded her hands and gently placed them on her knees, very elegant. She looked at Yi Xian with a kind smile. "State Scholar Yi, how do you feel now?" Yi Xian replied. "This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page." "Miss Lian, if there's something you want to say, just say it." He finally understood that this woman in front of him was not someone who was easy to deal with. Don't be fooled by her kind and amiable appearance, she was a person who would eat people up without spitting out the bones. Lian Wanli said seriously, "State Scholar Yi, I'm afraid you have some misunderstanding towards me." "No, no." Yi Xian shook his head repeatedly. "Miss Lian, help me. How could I have any misunderstanding towards Miss Lian? If Miss Lian has anything to say, please speak frankly." Lian Wanli smiled. "All right, I won't waste any more time." State Scholar Yi had been unconscious for 2 days. During this period of time, State Scholar Yi did not understand the current situation in the Azure region. It's like this, the spiritual energy source in the Azure region has been damaged, and the spiritual energy has been exhausted everywhere. According to what I know, there are already several cities in your country that have exhausted their spiritual energy, and a few of them are even in turmoil. Yi Xian was silent. Needless to say, it was definitely because of the mysterious woman's sword. She really wanted to destroy the world with a single sword strike. It was not a joke. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled bitterly. Now that he thought about it, he felt a lingering fear. If he hadn't stopped her at that time, there was no doubt that the Azure region would have been destroyed by her sword. This sword Immortal sister was simply too hot-tempered. Lian Wanli suddenly stood up and walked in front of Yi Xian. She said seriously, "State Scholar Yi, the land of the Azure region is in turmoil. If this continues, there might be all sorts of riots. At this critical moment, we still need State Scholar Yi to stand up and save the common people of the world. This king represents the billions of lives in the Azure region. To thank State Scholar Yi, I..." Yi Xian suddenly shook his head and interrupted Lian Wanli. "Save the common people of the world? Miss Lian, did I say that I wanted to save the common people of the world?" Lian Wanli blinked her eyes. Don't you want to save the common people of the world? Yi Xian shook his head. Miss Lian, I am just a small swordsman at the nether passage stage. It is not my turn to save the common people of the world. After I recover, I will return to the state of Jiang. As for the chaos in the state of Jiang, you don't have to worry about it. We will handle it well. Lian Wanli sat back down and didn't say anything. She gently waved her hand and an apple on the table flew into her hand. After taking a bite, she said indifferently, State Scholar Yi, I'm afraid you don't deserve the title of State Scholar. Yi Xian smiled. I am a State Scholar of the state of Jiang, not a State Scholar of the Great Cloud Empire. Lian Wanli looked straight at Yi Xian. The reason why the Azure region is like this is all because of State Scholar Yi. Does State Scholar Yi not have the slightest compassion? Yi Xian smiled. The cause of this matter seems to be Kuraki Academy and the Dark World. Why don't you pursue the matter, Miss Lian? Lian Wanli wanted to say something, but Yi Xian waved his hand. Miss Lian, I am not stupid. If you still want to say such nonsense, it will only make me look down on you. Lian Wanli stood up and walked to Yi Xian. It is not just the Azure region. The entire firmament world is in chaos. I have received intelligence that many mercenaries and factions from the divine central continent have come to Azure region. These people are here to plunder. At this point, she suddenly wrapped her arms around Yi Xian's shoulders and said excitedly, since they can come to plunder us, why can't we plunder them? If we join forces, we will directly attack the divine central continent and unify the firmament world. Yi Xian was about to speak when his lower body suddenly straightened. At the same time, all the blood vessels in his body bulged. His entire body was filled with blood. In an instant, Yi Xian's mind went blank. He hugged Lian Wanli and pressed her under his body. His and Lian Wanli's clothes were almost instantly burned to ashes by the heat radiating from his body. End of this chapter. Chapter 206. Side Effects. That was the last thought in Yi Xian's mind before he woke up. In the hall, the sudden change caused Lian Wanli's mind to go blank for a moment. When she regained her senses, she felt as though something had entered her lower body. It was very rough, very barbaric, in the blink of an eye. Bang! Yi Xian's entire body flew out, and with this flight, he flew out a few hundred feet away from the hall. When he landed on the ground beneath him instantly cracked, and along with it, Yi Xian's body also cracked. At that moment, his entire body had completely cracked, like a spiderweb. Fresh blood flowed out from the cracks, and in an instant, he became a blood man. At the entrance of the hall, Lian Wanli walked out. The current Lian Wanli was dressed in a dark red robe, her long hair fluttering in the wind, her expression cold, holding a green dragon blade in her hand. The blade was very long, 9 feet 9, and weighed at least 1,000 pounds. The blade had a green dragon swallowing the moon. Lian Wanli held the green dragon blade and walked towards Yi Xian, the blade dragging on the ground. Everywhere it passed, the ground started to crack. Just at that moment, little demon Tuoba suddenly appeared beside Yi Xian. She carried Yi Xian and ran. Lian Wanli frowned. Just as she was about to chase, Leng suddenly ran in front of her. Did that Yi Xian offend my king? Lian Wanli looked at Leng. Why did his personality change so much? Her voice was cold, with a trace of killing intent. Seeing that Lian Wanli was really angry, Leng was shocked. She lowered her head. My king, the item that Yi Xian exchanged for is a spiritual flood dragon's egg. Spiritual flood dragons are naturally lascivious, and within the egg, there is the strongest aphrodisiac in the world. If any female comes near, this item will automatically enter his blood vessels. At that time, he might. Lian Wanli's frown deepened. Why did you exchange for such an evil item? Leng looked at Lian Wanli, and said softly, my king, you said to exchange for something that has side effects, and not let him have it too easy. Towards the end, her voice became softer and softer, like a mosquito. But Lian Wanli still heard it clearly. Hearing Leng's words, Lian Wanli did not say anything and left with her blade. Little demon Tuoba immediately heaved a sigh of relief. This was the first time she saw Yan Wanli, so that she was so angry. She did not know what Yi Xian had done. Little demon Tuoba brought Yi Xian and left the palace. Because Tuoba had orders not to stop little demon Tuoba, thus, she was able to bring Yi Xian without any obstructions. After leaving the palace, little witch Tuoba brought Yi Xian to a dilapidated old house. She put Yi Xian on the ground and took out a small purple bottle. She poured out a purple elixir from the bottle and fed it to Yi Xian. After Yi Xian, Yi, from, Yi, from. After of Yi Xian, Yi, of Yi, of. Seeing that, little demon Tuoba heaved a sigh of relief. She turned to look at the direction of the palace and exclaimed, Sister Lian is so powerful. Saying that, she looked down at Yi Xian, swordsman, did you do something bad? Yi Xian did not reply. At that moment, he had already sobered up a little. The moment when he flew out of the hall, he was almost killed by the shock. If not for the fact that his body was strong enough, he would already be dead. At that moment, Lian Wanli truly had the intention to kill. Actually, he felt wronged too. Because at that moment, he felt his whole body congested with blood, adding on to the fact that he was at his weakest, he could not suppress that hot feeling at all, so he did something that he could not control at that time. And as for whether he did it or not, actually he was not very clear. Seems like, this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. Thinking of something, he suddenly sat up and used his sword eye to look at his lower part. After a moment, he sighed softly and lay back down. At that moment, little demon Tuoba pointed at Yi Xian's lower part, swordsman, are you bleeding down there? You. Yi Xian quickly took out a set of clothes and put them on. This little demon, really, does not know the difference between a man and a woman at all. Little demon Tuoba glared at Yi Xian, how stingy, it won't spoil even if I take a look. Yi Xian was speechless. How did this girl grow up? So heartless. Ignoring little demon Tuoba, he began to heal his wounds. At that moment, he was shocked to discover that the wounds all over his body were almost healed. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, Little demon, what elixir did you give me to eat just now? Little demon Tuoba was slightly proud, purple spiritual elixir, it's very expensive. A single one costs about 2 million supreme spiritual stones, and it's not even guaranteed to be able to buy it. My father only gives me 5 every month, and now there are only 4 left, 2 million supreme spiritual stones. Yi Xian blushed with shame. It's really expensive. Although it's expensive, its effects are really too good. As if he thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly said, Little demon, how long have you been out? Little demon Tuoba thought for a moment, and then said, even if I don't tell you, you would know, right? Yi Xian's face was full of black lines, and he almost jumped up to give this girl a slap. If you don't know, then you don't know. What do you mean you would know even if I don't tell you? Is this how you play? At that moment, little demon Tuoba suddenly sat on the ground and hugged his knees unhappily. Anyway, I won't go back. Why? Yi Xian asked curiously. Little demon Tuoba said coldly, my father said that I'm a wastrel. He said that I'm the number 1 wastrel in my family. Yi Xian asked again, what did you lose? Little demon Tuoba remained expressionless, nothing much. I just lost a heaven-grade treasure in my family. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. A heaven-grade treasure? Lost? Lost it? Little demon Tuoba grunted coldly, I didn't want it to. I just wanted to take it out to play, but it ran away on its own. It ran away on its own, and I didn't ask it to run away. My father didn't blame it, but he actually blamed me? Is there any justice left in this world? If he wasn't my father, I would have killed him a long time ago. Killed him a long time ago. Yi Xian was speechless. Little demon Tuoba was clearly still a little upset. She sat next to Yi Xian and said angrily, Swordsman, you're the most honest one. Tell me, can you blame me for this? I didn't ask the heaven-grade treasure to run away. It really ran away on its own. I was also very helpless. Yi Xian thought for a while and said, I understand. And, you can't be blamed for this. It's mainly the heaven-grade treasure's fault. Why did it run away? If it didn't run away, then all problems would be solved, right? Little Demon Tuoba glanced at Yi Xian and said seriously, if my father had half your intelligence, I wouldn't have to run away from home. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He decided to persuade her. Little demon, you've been away from home for so long. Your father must be worried. What do you think? Little Demon Tuoba grunted, if he doesn't come looking for me, I definitely won't go back. Why? Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Little Demon Tuoba said indifferently, if I go back like this, wouldn't I lose face? If he doesn't come looking for me, I definitely won't go back. Yi Xian was speechless. Little Demon Tuoba waved her hand. Don't talk about my father. This is a sad topic. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. Little Yi, are your injuries almost healed? Yi Xian checked his body. At this moment, his body was almost healed. If this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. Done. Yi Xian thought for a while and said, Little demon, why don't you follow me to Jianghu country for the time being? I've established Blue Waves Academy there. I'm the dean. Dean? Little Demon Tuoba's eyes lit up. You're the dean. Yi Xian nodded. If an outstanding person like you goes to my Blue Waves Academy, you'll at least be a vice dean. What do you think? Little Demon Tuoba blinked her eyes. Why only a vice dean? Yi Xian sternly said, as a dean, you have to deal with a lot of things every day. It's very tiring. But as a vice dean, you don't have to deal with anything. It's very relaxing. Little Demon Tuoba thought for a while. In the end, she said reluctantly, Vice Dean then. In any case, I'm also a dean. Yi Xian smiled. Don't worry. Blue Waves Academy is very fun. Let's go. After speaking, he left the old residence with Little Demon Tuoba and went to Drunken Immortal Inn. After the Battle of Karaki Academy, the entire Qingzhou was in an uproar. However, because of the sudden depletion of spiritual qi, there weren't many people paying attention to the matter of Karaki Academy and Yi Xian. Now, the entire Qingzhou was in a state of panic. Martial artists could increase their lifespan through cultivation. However, if there was no spiritual qi, it meant that they couldn't cultivate. And if they couldn't cultivate, it meant that their lifespan couldn't increase. If there was no spiritual qi, they would really die. Currently, the price of spirit stones in Qingzhou had skyrocketed. 3,000 gold coins couldn't even buy a single top-grade spirit stone. Gold coins were depreciating, but top-grade spirit stones were increasing in value. It could be said that the current currency in Qingzhou was no longer gold coins, but spirit stones. With the arrival of chaos, many people lost their humanity. As a result, there were already a lot of robberies, massacres, and other inhumane things happening all over Qingzhou. And now, Yi Xian wanted to rush back to Jianghu country as soon as possible. Yi Xian brought Little Demon Tuoba to Drunken Immortal Inn. The person who received them was a steward. The steward bowed slightly to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, what do you need? Yi Xian said, give me a cloud ship. I want to rush back to Jianghu country immediately. The steward nodded. Young Master Yi, please wait a moment. I will arrange it now. It will take at most a quarter of an hour. After speaking, he turned around and left. Yi Xian faced Little Demon Tuoba. Little Demon Tuoba sat on a chair and looked around thoughtfully. What's on your mind? Yi Xian asked. Little Demon Tuoba ran in front of Yi Xian and whispered, this Drunken Immortal Inn is very rich. Do you want to rob it? Yi Xian, at that moment, Little Demon Tuoba and Yi Xian's expressions changed drastically. In the next moment, the two of them vanished from where they were. When they reappeared, they were outside Drunken Immortal Inn. Behind them, Drunken Immortal Inn collapsed. In the sky above the ruined Drunken Immortal Inn stood a man in a black cloak. The man's right hand was pinching an old man. It was the steward of Drunken Immortal Inn from before. The man looked at the steward and grinned. His smile was somewhat sinister. I rushed here from the divine central continent. You actually told me that this Drunken Immortal Inn only has 2 million top-grade spirit stones? Are you joking with me? As he spoke, he slowly exerted force. The steward's face immediately turned purple, and he found it difficult to breathe. At that moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Brother, can you give me some face and let him go?" The cloaked man turned to glance at Yi Xian. In the next moment, he exerted force with his right hand. Crack! The steward's neck was snapped. The cloaked man loosened his grip, and the steward fell to the ground, no longer breathing. As for the cloaked man, he looked at Yi Xian and grinned. Let him go. End of this chapter. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.